Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you very much, Professor, again and again. Whenever you're ready, take it away.
Great. So thanks. So we were last time we were discussing the issue of תפילה, נוסח of ברכה, מטבע של ברכה, פתיחה, חתימה,
שלד של ברכה.
the skeleton, שלד. And then we were discussing פרק רביעי in the Mishna. So I wanted to get further into the issue of tefillah and do the sugya. It's a long sugya, but it's a very complicated sugya, and for me it will be also a chance to I would say, explain my approach to a sugya. So the Mishnah is אין עומדים להתפלל אלא מתוך כובד ראש, which is the first Mishnah of פרק חמישי. By the way, חסידים הראשונים היו שוהים שעה אחת ומתפללים כדי שיכוונו ליבם לאביהם שבשמיים. אפילו המלך שואל בשלומו לא ישיבנו, ואפילו נחש כרוך על עקבו לא יפסיק. I said as well, I mean, when we looked at the Mishnayot, I said that this stands in a certain interesting contrast with the Mishnah of Kriyat Shema, the first Mishnah of Perek Bet, right? Mm-hmm. And the first Mishnah of Perek Bet says, you don't have it with you, so it says, היה קורא בתורה והגיע זמן המקרא, אם כיוון ליבו יצא. Now is בפרקים שואל מפני הכבוד ומשיב, באמצע שואל מפני היראה ומשיב. So you can answer even in the middle of the פרק. You can answer מפני היראה. Here אפילו המלך שואל בשלומו לא ישיבנו. So we see that there is a difference, and that the kavanah in tefillah is far more. I'm not going to say kavanah here. It's not halacha in kavanah, but you're not interrupting your your posture, your standing. ואפילו נחש כרוך על עקבו לא יפסיק. The Gemara is troubled with the נחש, etc. But so, אין עומדים להתפלל אלא מתוך כובד ראש. So that's a way of preparing yourself, approaching tefillah, right? Now, what is כובד ראש? Just on a simple level. Rashi says, I'm not sure I will agree with Rashi, but Rashi has an interesting comment. Right? Rashi says what? בהכנעה. הכנעה. Submitting, which is a particular posture in tefillah. My interest now, the theme of our discussion will be what is the proper posture in tefillah. Posture is a little greater concept than intention.
Physical press?
It's not physical. It's the mental stance, right? Achna is one mental stance. It's not. It cannot be slowly translated to kavanah.
So what's your position, klape?
Shmaya. Klape, yeah. How do you stand? Be'achna'a. By the way, why do the Rashi? Presumably, koved rosh is a contrast with what?
Kalut rosh.
Kalut rosh, right? So, if we would say koved rosh will mean seriousness, right? But in any event, why would Rashi say בהכנעה?
How would you say in every seriousness? אני די רציניות.
רצינות, כובד ראש. תתייחס לעניין בכובד ראש.
אם רש"י היה מפרש ככה, איך היה פירוש המילים, איך שרש"י משתמש בלשון קודש שלו? איך היה משתמש?
הוא היה אומר... לא, הכנעה זה לא. הכנעה זה לא. אם אני אומר למישהו, נגיד עכשיו בשפה העברית, if I say to someone in the Hebrew language today, תתייחס לעניין בכובד ראש.
כן, זה
Right? I
בציניות.
say to a דיין, in serious.
זה מה שאני שואל לך, מה אתה רוצה מרש"י? אני לא יודע אם רש"י יש לך מילה לזה.
אבל הכנעה זה מילה אחרת לגמרי.
ברצינס.
אבל יש לך מילה, איך רש"י שייך?
אני יכול להגיד מתון,
במוסן, במתון.
במתון, היה יכול לבחור כל מיני. אני חושב שרש"י,
בכיוונס הלב.
רש"י לא מפרש כל דבר.
לא מדברים בכוונה עכשיו.
הוא אמר בהכנעה, רש"י אומר,
רש"י לא מפרש ein om dem
לא, רש"י אומר כובד
Rasch
ראש.
wünscht gedacht
לא
so.
רק כלום.
Jonas, Rasch wünscht gedacht so. Kann lassen so wie es ist.
למה? היא שואל, למה הוא אומר בהכנעה? לא צריך
כן, לא
לפרש
צריך
כלום.
להגיד כלום.
נכון.
בסדר.
בסדר, הוא עדיין אומר, זה לא פשוט, יש הבדל, תראו, אם אני אומר לך, תתפלל בכובד ראש, ואני אומר לך, תתפלל בהכנעה, אני אמרתי שני דברים שונים לך. אוקיי? It's not the same thing. So now we have to do a subtle phenomenology, a subtle, right, the variety of religious experience, right? Say, okay. Now, I think Rashi says, why does Rashi say Koved Rosh? Because Rashi thinks Koved Rosh in terms of posture, of the head. So your head is down, right? Kaved alai roshi, right? I think that's the way he literally understood Koved Rosh.
Not a state of mind.
Right. It's a posture of the body
So that's
that implies achna. But we have, okay, so we have,
And why do you disagree to that? Maybe it means the posture of the body, not only who tells you different than Rashi. I mean, that's for sure that the positioning of the body and the way with the hands, everything was a big part in
but
the
I think,
ancient tefillah.
I think that, I mean, clearly Rashi didn't mean that you have to put your head down, right? No.
Why not?
Rashi understood Koved Rosh metaphorically to mean achna'a because it means the head down.
That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
I thought you're saying that Rashi means...
No. Rashi understood. Rashi asked, what is Koved Rosh? I mean, we're gonna.
Now I understand. Okay.
I want to think about it seriously. I mean, Rashi says something here, but it's not trivial. I mean, on the level of Pshat, I would opted for a different nuance of posture. Okay.
I'm not Rasha. I know since a kid, whenever we saw the word Koved Rosh, it struck us weird. Like, if you want to ask for something, why Koved Rosh? It seems like Koved Rosh is too much. It's too somewhat too intense.
Okay.
It seems like Koved Rosh is like, oh, don't just ask. Like I learned best. They taught us, your kid, ask your father. Just ask him.
Good.
So maybe Rasha, it could have been a problem. Koved Rosh seems to not like. Ritzimut seems to be. It seems too Ritzimut.
Achna'a seems to magnify the problem.
Yeah, it seems to make it too much of it. It's
Okay.
like.
Okay. So we have to fine tune what is the mood, what is the posture, mental posture. Rashi opts for something which we all, I think there is a shared understanding in the room that it's not the most probable understanding of the term. Okay, but that's just a comment. Now the Gemara asks, Minane Mile, Amar Rabbi Lazar, the Amar Kra vehi marat nefesh. That's from Chana. Soon we will see that Rabbi Lazar is Mara Deshmata all over these two dapim. He dominates the sugya.
Bruce ben Pedos, yeah?
What?
Bruce ben Pedos.
Yeah. Now, vehi marat nefesh, which is a completely different thing. What is marat nefesh in English?
Sad.
Bitter.
Bitter, depressed, sad, yeah.
Bitter.
כמו מרור, כן?
Yeah, marat nefesh, she comes bitterly. She's bitter. She's upset. That's, by the way, very different than Koved Rosh. Clearly, they're very different than achna'a, right? So when Rabbi Lazar said, interpret this term brought this verse as a proof text in a very powerful way, he also changed the definition or changed the direction of the etc. Mimai dilma chana shani deava merira liba tuva. Maybe that could not be a
What do you mean
precedent.
it changed? So you're saying now that Rabbi Eliezer, he said it in the Mishnah, so he has a new explanation what Koved Rosh means?
Yeah, yeah.
And how does Koved Rosh
You have to
connect
come
with
to
bit-
tefillah bitter,
But how does
with
it
bitterness.
how does it connect with Koved Rosh?
It's not.
But he's not cholek on the Mishnah. He's like saying that you're now going to teach us also how the methodology of Gemara. So what is he doing? He's like saying put it in the Mishnah even though the Mishnah doesn't mean it.
Yeah, I mean, if Rashi says koved rosh b'achna'a,
Yeah.
You can say Meridas.
Rabbi Lezer can say koved rosh
No,
b'merirut.
Rashi we explained. Rashi could learn that Koved Rosh means like the head is heavy, so you could see in the Mishnah.
Right.
How could you see Merirut in Koved Rosh?
Koved Rosh could mean
I'm
like
saying
a
you
Kerem
said that you're going to
Rosh.
also part of the we're having now is not only the Etzem and Yant and Tefillah, but also you're going to try to show us how we learn Gemara. So
Okay.
if you could please explain a little bit more. On this.
Okay. Okay. I'm interested. The thing that intrigues me most in learning a sugya is what I call interpretive gaps.
What does it mean?
What does it mean? When an Amora, let's say Rabbi Lazar ben Dat, right, it's not a late Amora, it's an important Amora, opts for a reading of the Mishnah, which is not the straightforward reading.
Right.
Right.
So that's why I said you should elaborate more. How did they do it? Before why, if you could also explain why does it change? What's bad with the typical meaning? And the second question is, but how do you do this mechanism? You need to push it in the Mishnah, or you don't even need? It looks like you do need. It doesn't say ani olech neged ha-Mishnah.
No, you would
So
never
if you
go
could please
after-
explain how do you push it in?
He would never go against the Mishnah, right? He extends the meaning of the. He extends it, directs
So
it.
you're gonna
etc.
have to try to see how it's munach in the Mishnah.
Yeah.
It's like Rasid Shereb's Torahs on Psukim, even though we know that the pussy doesn't mean it, but you put in a pshat in them. I want to understand how does it work.
First, let's identify what works. That's what the person. What's different?
Okay, first.
What's different?
Okay, let's.
It said bitterness is different.
Let's establish that bitterness
Yeah.
It's not Koved
is a
Rosh.
completely different approach than seriousness or b'achna. Come bitter, okay? Marat nefesh, come with pain, come with your pain. Merirus nefesh, right? It's completely different style, okay? By the way,
This is how you have bitterness, according to Google. Also Koved Rosh. Also the same passion.
yeah, that's nice. Here's we are. When you're bitter, you
Oh, so it is a little bit good, right?
do like
Sounds good,
that. It's just you can't take it anymore.
You
Okay.
could see it in the Mishnah.
הצהרות על הראש.
Someone.
Like a zoek בתפילה, we see
So what I'm by the way, there is something that is not. I'm interested in the history, not the history or even the history of religious mood. Okay, we're not talking about beliefs, but the religious mood. By the way, it's a very elusive category, but it's complete different. When Rabbi Lazar says, and we will see that his approach will affect the whole sugya. I'm going to show it. But when he says, marat nefesh, right? He directs the way of standing in a completely different form.
Right.
Okay. Now you've asked, how does he interpret the Mishnah itself, right? So Yoel helped us with Google. I mean, that's the ultimate raya. That there is a way of understanding the posture of bending the head as a form of bitterness.
So why
That's
do
a
you say?
stretch.
So that's what I'm asking. Why do you say that it's going against the Vanapshuta from the Mishnah? Because he still feels a stretch.
Yeah, of course.
And why did he do it? Why didn't he? What wasn't good with the Perush in the Mishnah himself?
Because he wanted to introduce another nuance of orientation that is not captured by seriousness and clearly not captured by
It's hard
submissiveness.
to
So why-
think that that's how he really thought that every day a person should daven with bitterness. It's like, why? What is even the beauty in it?
We'll see, sure. A person has to, since the essence of tefillah is bakasha,
But
rachmei.
the tefillot that we see in the Nevi'im, where they prostrate themselves on the floor, those weren't kaviyistic tefillahs like Shachos and Chemarim. Those were in times of, in special and unique times.
Of course.
That's what the
They
Gemara
shout-
That's what the Gemara challenges. He says, how can you bring Chana as a
So you
paradigm?
said you want to
of tefillah?
introduce it this type of way, and you're going to explain why in his times came up this kind
No, his times, I don't know enough. It could have been any time.
So why, if he wants to do such a concept, he needs to put it in the Mishnah? What's bad of saying a Memra himself? Why do you need to put it in the Mishnah?
The Mishnah is an authoritative text.
Okay,
It shapes the way you stand in tefillah.
right,
It says bechoved rosh,
right.
right? And
In order that his right should be authoritative, he needs to put it in the Mishnah.
of course.
It says
Yeah.
Elul.
First, we know that Elizabeth Pedos like bitterness. Huh?
What?
You call it interpretation of the gaps?
I
Yeah.
call it
Interpretive
interpretive gaps.
Does it also go the other way around? That it means that Manu Hanamila wasn't even a question. He tried to give an answer, so that's why he's asking Manu Hanamila. He wants to put in the Mishnah bitterness, so that's why he's asking. He's not even asking why.
Yeah, through he does it. He does it through the source of this. You say what he does actually. If you go even more sophisticated, we have two canonical texts, right? The Mishnah and the Torah, right? So he's basically approaching one canonical text. Right? So, well, how do we know how we stand? In what way? By the way, it's actually complicated. It's not a trivial thing. It says, where do you have in all of Tanakh a description of the mental state, not the posture, etc., the particular mental state? It says, yeah, v'imarat nefesh.
Last week, Eliezer,
Yeah.
he's standing there and says to the Eibishter, he's asking. It says right afterwards he was like surprised, but it doesn't say any meant. He just said words. He said, God,
Yeah,
if this
no,
happens,
we don't have
We don't have the mental state. It doesn't
we
say
don't
anything.
have an ascription of mental state.
Ah,
That's what I mean.
Oh.
By the way, I don't know if you will search for it. Maybe it's one of the. You will count on the Gemara to bring more. The Gemara will do the work, right? The Gemara will begin to.
Yankov Zvini was afraid, it says.
But what I'm saying is that you ask me why, right?
Yeah.
And the why is because he wants a certain combativeness.
So that makes me think that maybe it's not like that's why I want to know why you call it how do you say gap was the first one?
Interpretive gap.
Interpretive gap. Why you call it like that? Because maybe he really believed that this is the kavanah in the Mishnah. He didn't even go like fika. The way that you put it down is like there's the pashas pshat in the Mishnah, and he goes away. Maybe no, like you're saying, he doesn't see any other pshat because he really feels that the Torah Shebapeh needs a makar and Torah Shebiksav, and there's no other makar, any other pastor chitz from that. So he really believes that this is the pshat in the Mishnah. You're trying to say that that later Amoraim really opened up the Mishnah again and played around and with the seriousness, but needed to find their source in the Mishnah.
Decanonization, we call
Who
it.
says that? Maybe they really believe. Now he explained it so nice why you should believe, because he doesn't see in Tanakh any other source of such a kind of pasture, and he says, okay, so this is the kavanah from the Mishnah.
But it's still, because
what
this
it
is what we heard the last few Shirim. If we look at it and we think that Hushit doesn't mean something else, and maybe he had a question, but it's still different. From us, it's an interpretive gap.
No, but
Isn't it?
Yeah, it's very important
Maybe.
to add that this is
Maybe.
the beginning times of tefillah.
It's still a gap.
It's not like, okay, how did Shimon HaTzadik daven every day? We established that they are, this is B'mukim Tamidim, you know, this is the second, third generation after they started everyday davening.
It's still a gap, even if you have the right reason, even if it says it must be that it's still a gap.
I'm not pushing the point, okay?
I see. This is always you don't answer, and no, because I understand, but I still feel from so many times you said already that you do feel that the Amoraim did a lot of times decanonize the Mishnah through giving explanations that they really knew that this wasn't the פשט הראשון של המשנה, זה פשט משני, אבל עדיין הם חושבו, כמו שאתה אמרת לפני כמה דקות, שהם חושבו שאין לגיטימציה סתם להגיד דברים, צריך לקשר את זה לתוך המשנה. אבל עכשיו אתה אומר, לא, אני כן מסכים שיכול להיות
לפעמים יכול להיות שכך הוא מבין את המשנה, אבל אני לא חושב שבמקרה הזה זה נכון.
כן?
כן.
אוקיי.
למה? כי כמוני וכמוך, like both of us, he understands the term, the straightforward term, kavod rosh, he understands.
Okay.
Right? By the way, I would say even about Rashi that that's the case.
Yeah?
Yeah. But,
You really think Rashi was acting now like a Gemara?
yeah. Now you ask me, again, it's not either he goes the pshat, or he abuses, or he is engaging in textual harassment, right? No, I mean they're in between,
Okay.
right?
Interpretive gaps.
They're in between options, right? The text is ambiguous, and you can stretch it. Now, I will put it more bluntly. Okay, it's not about this case. More bluntly is the following: the first law of physics of interpretation. Okay, let's say that we have laws of physics about interpretation. It will be like that. There is a reverse relation between the authority of the text and the stability of its meaning. By that I mean the following. The more the text will be authoritative, the less its meaning will be stable.
Okay, what does it mean?
Why is that?
Because you want to hold on to the text.
The more, let's remember that, okay? It's a klal, it's a klal, right? A reverse relation. The more the text will be authoritative,
More people can hold on to it.
the less
The less.
its meaning will be stable.
The more
Because-
interpretations,
ככל
Everybody can
שהטקסט
hang
תהיה
their hat on.
סמכותי יותר, כך המשפחות שלו תהיה פחות יציבה.
בגלל שכל אחד ירצה לתרגם את זה כפי שהוא רוצה.
By the way, that's
כך טבע של הדברים, או כך שהמציאות,
ככה
איך
זה נהיה.
שפועלים בזה, כך זה נהיה.
First 20 pages of his first book is written about it. That's the subject, right?
I didn't formulate it this way, but lama? Because since the text, if it's mega authoritative,
Right.
it can never err, right? It has to answer all your questions, right? Not the question for this. You have to stretch its meaning, right? And then you develop more and more techniques,
That's the beginning.
right? Gematria, this and that and that. It has a sword, it has this, it has that. That's a paradox of the, it's the ultimate paradox of interpretation, right?
Right.
If you say, what's the history of interpretation of Tanakh in Jewish hands, that's the result. The more the text is authoritative, the less its meaning is stable. Why? It has to answer all possible questions. It has to fit with the ultimate criteria of what's true and what's right and what's this and what's that. At a certain moment, it completely crumbles. This is why, now here is a second law of physics, right? Now I'm giving the physics of interpretation. It is therefore an outcome of that, which is that the unmediated approach to the text becomes a danger to the tradition that rests on it.
And to tax it from within.
Exactly.
בעברית, איך אומרים את זה?
גישה לא מתווכת לכתוב נהיה סיכון למסורת שנשענת עליו.
פשיטה של מקרא זה סכנה.
because you're
פשיטה של
allowing
מקרא זה
it,
סכנה.
you're allowing it to develop so far.
Exactly.
There's no
כן, של מקרא.
there's not pshita shel mikra.
פשיטה של מקרא זה לא הפשט.
Medrash takes it sometimes so
Spinoza
far.
has,
You've lost
So
it.
this is why-
On media it means לא סמכתי.
לא מתווך,
לא מתווך
בלי רש"י,
My sister Eved al Adoinov, אז זה בדיוק.
בלי חז"ל, לא מתווך בלי חז"ל.
אז זה לסיסקה Eved al Adoinov.
לכן בהיסטוריה של כל הכפירות, לא כל הכפירות, אבל כפירות מסוימות, in the history of heresy, there is a return to the original
source.
text, to the source.
Even
Spinoza has a
called
verse
God,
in
you know?
the theological political tractate. He says,
הוא זה?
no, Spinoza, no heresy without scripture.
That's why he called nature
but-
God.
That's only in his days, but
וזה
today
יכול
we
להיות.
have without.
זה בגלל שפעם לא היה משהו בלי לפרש את הכסף
בסדר, בסדר, אני
לא,
אומר,
זה-
yeah,
אתה אומר
sure,
עכשיו
I
דוגמה אחרת.
said there are different forms of
אבל
heresy.
מהשאלה שלי, אם אתה אומר כך, if you say like that, if you could say in a different nusach, say, basically, like the Rambam says, that I don't shape my dayas and anything through the Kizvah HaKodesh, because I could tell you, I'll be mefarish the Kizvah HaKodesh as I want, and so I believe what I believe, if it makes sense or not.
Right.
So basically you're saying the same thing in the Mishnah Amoraim. Basically, if they're enough smart, they know how to put in the Mishnah, and because they're so authoritative, the Mishnah, they're going to stretch it as far as they want.
Now, I don't take a cynical view of interpretation.
Why is it not cynical?
Why? Because he takes the Mishnah as authoritative, as a source of inspiration, etc., etc. And at the end, he would say, if you push him, right? He would say, he would say, you know, given the fact,
Yeah.
right, that the preferable way is to stand in tefillah in bitterness. And not only that, when we look at Tanakh, where actually there is a glimpse, it's so rare in Tanakh to describe the mental life of the...
Wie kiefst du mit der Tanach? Und so in der Mission do.
Okay.
I'm saying what the Pushat Eden would say. Coming with Pshita Shemikra, you call me.
Beseder. So he would say, you know, let's read the Mishnah this way. You know, then you say, how does it fit the Koved Rosh? Now, since terms are ambiguous enough, right, you can stretch different meanings of the terms in different ways.
Yeah, but I'm saying this kind of custom to be Meshubat, the Kizvah HaKodesh, like you said from Spinoza, is really just a political thing. No, it's not only a political move. It's not because Spinoza really believes in the Kizvah HaKodesh.
No, Spinoza doesn't say anything about himself. He observes.
I know. So I'm
So
asking you.
interesting,
I'm asking, is it just a political
No.
tool, or it's really believing that the road could get stretched, and זה היה כוונת המשנה. זה מה שאני שואל, זה מאוד חשוב לי. תגיד, אתה חושב שבסוף של דבר הם חושבים שזה ממש נאמר בריח הקודש, אז יכולים להכניס דברים, or it's a political move, but it's a serious thing. It's serious because the way that judicial laws and Masoret works, if you're gonna בהרס הכל תהרס. אבל אני לא אומר את זה בצחוק, אבל אני שואל, זה סתם political move, it's a political move, or it's more than a political move? You're masking there is such a kind of tfisot chazal that every word in Torah could have meanings, that everything, כל מה שהתלמיד ועשית לחדש, could even be meant by Moshe Rabbeinu. But I don't think that someone believes that in the Mishnah. That's what I'm asking you. Just political, or no, it's more than political?
What do you mean political? Socially correct?
No, just it's gonna be מהרס כל המוסדות, אם אתה מהרס את הכל.
As long as scripture is so
I would say, though he changes the meaning of the term Koved Rosh, he does it in Koved Rosh.
Say that.
Do you have a zeroed law?
במרירות או
Do you have a
בהכנעה?
zeroed law in physics?
The third law?
A zero.
Zero law? There is no zero law.
In physics,
But there is a third law of physics of interpretation, but that's for advanced physics. We need to know a lot of math in order to try. We'll do it another time. Now the Gemara challenges him in a very good way. He says, why would that be a paradigm of tefillah? It's a rare moment. It cannot be a form of keva.
This Orech didn't understand what the Blozer really meant.
What?
This Orech took too serious what he brought the source of Tanakh. He didn't understand that he wants to introduce to.
No, he challenges
But that's a
him
permanent
not
way how
because
he wants you to pray.
that's not a good raya. No. He says you misunderstood Hana's state.
Yeah, but the question is, who says Rebbe Lozik comes from a pasuk? He comes really, okay.
No. Here is a discourse, right? You say you have to stand in bitterness. Say, how do we know? Well, we have a precedent called Hana. There's bitterness.
Understand? Man, when do you take serious? When not take serious? If you,
I always
really
take
think-
serious.
Okay.
What? It's always serious. No, I mean in the sense that the dialogue makes sense. I mean sometimes you either don't understand it, or by the way, it's a not successful dialogue. Not all Talmudic dialogues are good. This one is not bad. You would say, well, he challenges him the way it was challenged here in the table. You say, merirut nefesh is an extreme mode of crisis. That's not the mode you will approach on a daily basis, tefillah.
Yeah.
So don't, right? Right. So,
They're talking in one table.
אמר לי, אלא אמר רבי יוסי ברבי חנינא מהכה, ואני ברוב חסדיך אבוא ביתך, אשתחווה אל אחד קודשך ביראתך.
A new meaning.
Right, ביראה. עשו אותה ביראה. Let's get closer, we understand what Rashi,
Same door.
Yeah.
Chaver.
where Rashi,
Chava.
where Rashi, why did Rashi went to this, בהכנעה? And now here is, by the way, that's ממאי דילמה דוד שני דהבה מצער נפשי ברחמת טובה. I would say this is not a great moment of a challenge, right?
Right.
That's kind of a repetitive of the prior question. I mean,
Without the prior question, he would not have asked it.
exactly.
But also, it's lacking the basis, like they're interpreting differently, and it doesn't say Elu Kovidrash Zayira Menuana Mila. It's missing that they're changing interpretation. It's almost like as if they're all interpreting the same way, and they're just bringing psikim. But according to the way you lay it out, Kovidrash is unknown. It's a playful word, something that is up for interpretation, and every interpretation changes it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, now, אלא אמר רבי יהושע בן לוי, מהכה, ישתחוו להשם בהדרת קודש, אל תקרא בהדרת, אלא בחרדה.
He's saying the same thing. It's even stronger.
It's stronger than Irah. Right.
No, he didn't like David HaMelech's Yirah because that's some type of extreme. So he went to Harada, which is even worse.
Yeah,
No?
we don't know, yeah, but what we see, by the way, I'm just editorially speaking, we have different Amoraim responding to the Mishnah, and the editor makes a sugya of it. It's not important. The making of a sugya now is
who
not
says?
important.
But whoever made the sugya put one in front of the
Why?
other.
Maybe it was discussion one besmedish. Everyone except the last one, Nachman Yitzchak, everyone was in the same door.
Right, but Rab Nachman bar Yitzchak is not, right?
Okay, so you're saying.
אוקיי, בסדר, זה לא חשוב
אתה
לי.
קושר העורך, הרבה פעמים, כאילו שהיה דיסקשן יחד.
כאילו הוא ענה לו,
כן.
למה אני אומר את זה? כי פה הוא רק מחריף את הבעיה. I'm answering, right? And
איך זה מתרץ, אבל עדיין, אם אתה עורך
כן,
הדברים,
בדיוק. זה מה
איך זה
שאני אומר.
מתרץ את השאלה?
זה לא
אומר שאתה
מתרץ.
מתרץ את השאלה בזה.
זה לא
Maybe the
מתרץ.
dialogue.
זה אחד מהדברים שהוא לא אוהב את הסוגיה.
לא, אני לא מתרץ, אני אומר, עלה פה קושי.
כן.
There was a question, right? If it follows the tfira, the putting together of the sequences here is a little bit problematic, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there is a... זה חורק. How do you say? It cracks a little bit. אבל זה לא חשוב לי עכשיו.
Correct sounds better.
זה לא חשוב לי. It's not that important for me.
Squeaky.
כלומר, אין עליך הדרת ממש, כי יד רב יהודה הווה מצאי נפשי והדר מצלה. הדרת means with הדר, right? It's not exactly יראה, it's not חרדה, etc. אלא, אמר רב נחמן בר יצחק מאחה, עבדו את השם ביראה וגילו בירדה. By the way, עבדו את השם ביראה is a preferred text. Why? Because it doesn't refer to a particular individual describing his state.
It's referring to the in general.
That's why it's a better proof text. Okay. ואני, etc. אלא עבדו את השם ביראה.
I have a different way of looking at this.
No, that's the point.
Shtach was on a moment.
No. The advantage of Ishtachavu Lashem is that you cannot ask maybe David because it's also refers. But you have to do Al Tikrei in order to. So he says, but this Al Tikrei doesn't work, right?
I have a little bit of a different approach, if I can say it.
Please.
Everybody knows what Koved Rosh means, and the Gemara is not looking to change it. But when you are Muras Nefesh, when you are Beyira, when you are Bechedra, and when you are Beirada, you have the Koved Rosh, the seriousness. So if you find Muras Nefesh, so you know that there was seriousness. If you find Cherda, you know there was seriousness. And then the Gemara says, no, maybe it's not serious, maybe it's happy. That one was serious, that one was Cherda. But it's not looking to reinterpret it like we said on Rashi, it's changing, it's playing. We're looking for Koved Rosh. Where will we see it? Because we see people with Maras Nefesh. There must have been Koved Rosh.
In being
serious, in being Maras Nefesh, in being all these states, you are Koved Rosh.
Yes,
and nobody's playing with it.
Because you see, the Gemara says that the from Rabbi Yehuda have a mitzayim benafsha.
That's not bringing
That's
seriousness.
not exactly.
That's like,
that's
oh,
not.
this kid, you know.
The Gemara doesn't want to even
Shalom and Nafshi, dressed
entertain
well.
it,
You know.
even though you could say
Okay.
that Hadrash is that you have to put on the nice clothing to go down, right? Like Rashi says.
Okay. Let's put things together, right? Of what we have done so far. The Gemara enters a very important question, which is, what is the proper mental posture in entering tefillah? It's prompted by the Mishnah's concept of Koved Rosh, right? Rashi has a take on it, we have a take on it, etc. Then we have Rabbi Lozor, who brings bitterness by way of Chana, being rejected. Maybe Chana is different. Then we have Rabbi Yossi ber Chanina, who brings Ir'ah, but since it's witnessing as Ve'ani berov chazdecha, as David approached, it's maybe it cannot be said. Then we have two further texts that refers to the plural group, which are about Ir'ah, either Charada or Ir'ah. So the one who's actually outside the discourse here is who? Rabbi Lazar. Okay. Now, by the way, that makes Rashi more appealing, right? Because Rashi is following the Gemara, right? and he does the Koved Rosh, B'achna, B'ira, etc. We are within the, we would say, family of
Scope.
mood of a certain. Rabbi Lazar ben Azaria is the
Outlier.
Outlier here. Okay.
Ben Pados, you mean?
Rabbi Lazar ben Pda. Okay. Okay, now the Gemara begins. Now the Gemara speaks about Vegilu Birada, which is a new discussion. What is Vegilu Birada? מהי וגילו ברעדה? אמר רבא במקום גילה שם רעדה. And then אביי אבא יתיב קמי דרבא, חז ידע וכבד כתובה, אמר וגילו ברעדה כתיב, אמר לאנה תפילין מנחנו. רבי ירמיה אבא יתיב קמי דרבי זרע חז ידעיו עד קבע תחתובה, אמר לי בכל עצב יהיה מותר כתיב, אמר לי אנא תפילין מנחנו. מר ברי דרבינה עבד הילולה לברי, חזנו לרבנן דאבה קבעת חוטובה. These are cases of overjoyous. הייתי קסא דמוקרא בת 400 זוזים ותבר קמיו ויעצו. רב אשי אמר הילולה לברי חזנו דרבנן דאבה קבעת חיטובה, הייתי קסא דזוגית חברתה ותבר קמיו ויעצו. אמרו לי רבנן לרב הומנה זוזי בהילולה דמר ברי דרבינה לישרלן מר, אמר לי ויילן דמיתנן ויילן דמיתרן. אמר לי ענן מנעני בטרח, that's a good question. אמר לי הוי תורה והי מצווה דמגנון עלי. By the way, this is the Gemara then shifts from the question of how to stand in tefillah to the general posture in life, right? And it's an attack, a certain attack on overjoyous, etc. By the way, a very important question in the history of Yahadut Bechlal. What is the normative mood? Right?
לפני חסידות או אחרי חסידות?
Yeah, the Hasidut, the real transformation of Hasidut is that, right?
The Rambam.
Hmm? Yeah, there are other, etc. אוקיי. אמר רבי יוחנן משום רשב"י, אסור לאדם שימלא שחוק פיו בעולם הזה, שנאמר אז ימלא שחוק פינו ולשוננו יראנה. מתי? when is אז? בזמן שיאמרו בגויים הגדיל השם לעשות עם אלה. אמרו עליו על ריש לקיש שמימיו לא מילא שחוק פיו בעולם הבא, משום שמי מרבי יוחנן רבי. So we had, the Talmud does a detour to the question of happiness as a whole, as a posture in life, in the most critical lines in the, maybe in Jewish history, in Jewish authoritative texts about simcha.
A response to the Chorban Beis HaMikdash, I would imagine.
Okay, is it a response to Chorban Beis HaMikdash? Is it a relationship between simcha and sin? You know, there is a, and you know,
I'm asking you, this is not the Gemara on Gittin that we're talking about Gzeirot of Havelot after the Chorban Beis HaMikdash. It's more like we're talking on life.
right.
If it's the proper thing
Nicht den
to
ganzen, man sieht,
Wait, because
Hegel Hashem lasses in meine,
Right.
car,
Here-
car, the einzige Sache im car.
right. Okay, now I'm not going to enter a discussion on this Memrot, but it's a very important text with a lot of importance on a major feature of religious life. Right? We understand the weight of this Gemara. Yes.
No, earlier by Loser Ben Padas, when he says that Timoras Nefesh, this is he puts himself in like a very
negative,
corner.
depressive
That
state.
this is how tefillah should be, because tefillah encompasses Shelach and Ador and all the other stuff.
Right.
So how is Timoras Nefesh the only state of mind that person should have? Like tefillah, so it doesn't get.
Well, since he puts bakasha in the midst of it, as
Basically, he's asking how should I by Shevach Voido? By Bakasha, he understands. Tefillah is not only
Shevach
Rach.
V'Ada is a way of softening the bakasha.
Right. Besoy the Bakasha.
Tefillah rachmeninu.
But we see him to have like the only posture should be Timoras Nefesh. It has to be like a variety
Of course, he wants to bring that posture to the
The
front,
main person.
the main posture.
Historically, we see there's historical evidence that even hundreds of years after the Chorban, the way the Jews prayed was with extreme avelot and crying.
Avelei Tzion.
For hundreds of years.
But not Chazal. They had the Marachan neged Avelei Tzion, no?
כמעט נשכח כמובן.
What? They didn't have a Marachan neged Avelei
It became
Tzion?
part of the tefillah. It became part. I'm just saying a reflection. That's what Rebbe Luzer ben Pedas
תפילה
would have that
במקום
approach. It was a more avelot than
Right.
tefillah.
Basically, if you look at the beginning of this sugya, there is a tension between two postures. either merirut nefesh or ir'a. Okay? While most of the Amoraim lead to
Forms of Yura.
ir'a, different etc. And soon as I will give a fuller explanation to all this tension as the sugya will go along.
But there is an option for simcha over here. If you put on tefillin, which most people daven with tefillin, then you can daven with simcha also.
That was kabudach.
Well, it wasn't davening b'simcha. He was just.
Otherwise, why is he's asking him
It's not
during
in
the
tefillah,
day? So how
It's-
does it come? How does it even come into this whole sugya over here?
because the
It's
sugya
supposed to be a
shifts,
change. We're shifting.
shifts to not to issues of tefillah.
It reminds me,
day.
my mashgiach in yeshiva used to get very upset with me when he says, "Favos shmeichels da ganze Zeit."
Right.
Was that
Like,
literal?
what the heck? Like
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
If he would have had an influence, he would have made so many jokes.
The the flag has to be in the middle of the mast. You know?
Like redach nishan sigaret as a
דגל בחצי התורן, that's the normative mood. If you schmeichel too much, soon you're going to sin in something.
Yeah.
You know, don't schmeichel. It's either you're self-satisfied, either who knows what thoughts do you have.
Or you're not smart.
So there is a, and then the Chassidus comes and says, Atzvut is sin in itself. Why? Because melancholy is nihilistic. That's, by the way, a deep insight, psychological. If someone is melancholic, too melancholic, he has nothing to lose, he is dangerous. What? Depressed. Moresh Chora. There is a connection between sin and Marash Chora, or maybe
It's the biggest thing.
maybe Marash Chora in itself is a form of not having gratitude,
Yes.
right? It's a form of resentment even to Hashem. It's complicated. I mean, I wish we had the time to do a history of proper mood.
Very interesting because the Gemara says on the Blues Van Padas, "Va'avus atish getomet zir Blues Van Padas." He was
Right.
the sample for Avas Hashem.
Right, right,
Wow.
right. Okay.
Here we're talking about someone that's
Yira.
Which Yira, more than Yira, bitterness.
Bitterness.
We're gonna have
You can have a half
Yeah.
of
You can
bitterness.
have chabad. Shaykh is the thing.
Sorry?
Richtige Ave, no bitterness.
right.
So that's the ultimate achnua. There's no achnua more than Avraham Avinu.
Right.
When he's the symbol of achnua, not anova. Moshe Rabbeinu more. But the Nuchi of Havayit.
מה שרבנו says, ואנחנו מה?
Yeah.
I remember one Baal Musar.
So why is here by Tefillah?
saying that's a bigger mile of
No, but
What about this?
What's a
Tefillah,
Gemara?
Tefillah.
It's a Gemara, this. That
Yeah,
Moshe
Golda,
Moshe
Moshe Neymar,
Moshe
yeah.
Neymar, he was bigger than
Yeah,
Abraham.
yeah.
In any event, let's continue now. So I mean, what I'm saying is, we opened up a deep question in Jewish life.
Is there a common
The discussion-
word like
the discussion
intense
is
for
here.
all of this?
What?
Intensity. Would that cover it all?
No.
The
No,
achnua?
no. Intensity is intense. Yeah.
No?
We see this is
But that's
exactly the
simple,
discussion here. If everything is so negative, what is left? So that you have Torah, high mitzvah.
It's a
Like
thing.
this was the tension. This was the tension. Like on the one hand, there has to be this deep sorrow and melancholy, or whatever that word is. And on the other hand, if you have that, how can you function? So
But
that's the
Torah and
balance.
mitzvah seems like a continuation of the problem. Right?
I think it's an answer.
You say we even don't have Torah and mitzvah to protect us. We not only that we're going to die, we're going to hell.
I think it's an answer. Do that.
High
That will be your way out of
Yafeh,
it.
could be. At least the way
Rashi, yeah.
Rashi says, okay, no, we don't have to.
Existential issues.
So we're having problems with Rashi from the get-go here. So
That's fine, that's fine. But in this case, hey Torah, hey mitzvah is
Sounds
where
like-
is Torah, where is
So
mitzvah?
bring it. Do it.
Yafeh, could be. בסדר.
That will take you out of it.
יפה.
Meshivat
This is why you were schmeichling all the time.
I'm not going to tell you why.
אוקיי. תנו רבנן. אין עומדים להתפלל לא מתוך דין ולא מתוך דבר הלכה, אלא מתוך הלכה פסוקה. By the way, this is a תוספתא, right? Which is an alternative to כובד ראש.
Or another way to get the כובד ראש.
Or maybe an alternative, or clearly we are saying, חסידים הראשונים היו עומדים שעה אחת, etc., etc. Now, and then Gemara says, ואיכי דמי הלכה פסוקה, אמר אביי, כי יד רבי זיירא דאמר רבי זיירא, בנות ישראל החמירו על עצמם שאפילו רואות טיפת דם כחרדל יושבת עליו 7 נקיים. רבא אמר, כי יד רבי הושעיה דאמר הושעיה, מערים אדם על תבואתו ומכניסה במוץ שלה כדי שתבהמתו אוכלת ופטורה מן העשר. והיא בהתאמה, כי יד אמר רבונה, כי יד רבונה דאמר רבונה, מקיס דם בבהמת קודשים אסור בהנאה ומעלים בו. So there are different examples for halacha psuka. I never understood why these examples, but in any event, that's what they bring. Now he says, Rabbanan avdei kematnita, Rav Ashi avdei kebraita.
Two different meanings.
Is Rabbanan? Interesting.
Right? Which means that part of what the Sugya does, apropos decanonizing the Mishnah, here is not reinterpreting.
You know, he's saying he's not doing like the Mishna.
No, he's just bringing another authoritative
Right.
text, Braita, that is not like the Mishnah, and says that's another option here.
And what do you mean the option? Not Yira, just Bakavana.
מתוך דבר הלכה, entering...
Why Dvar Halacha? Because Rashi says, because if you're going to be too deep, you're not going to come to
No, דבר הלכה is why, that's an internal point.
Why it's psika.
Why it's psuka.
Right.
It's how do you achieve God's presence?
הלכה פסוקה.
Through לימוד.
Learn.
אפילו אדם יושב ועוסק בתורה, שכינה עמו, now that שכינה עמו,
Bemoeken er soms tijd vullen. Dat is
go and Prof.
Learn, ja.
What?
Okay.
What?
Dus dat is echt alleen van
It's a nice parish, but this is not the parish.
normally how
This
we
is not the
learned it-
parish Pashut that you learn.
we
it.
learned it
No
when we learned
problem
it
with
Yomi.
that. Normally when you learn it, the pshat you learn is not because Mokum Tefillah Shamtai. This is a nice word. But
learn it from
one
another.
second. Pashas Rashi said you're not allowed to learn. You're not allowed to learn before davening. Pashas Rashi holds that you're not allowed to learn before davening. I'm just saying normally you learn the sugya. It's not he's saying that the right way to get it tefillah through Torah. He's just warning you that if you learn, that's not so pashut. You shouldn't learn deep stuff. It's gonna make problems with the tefillah. You're saying no. This is like an akudat tzadish.
Ze missen ze
Ein Ordnung mispal. Jonas,
By the way,
Ein Ordnung mispal Elu mitoch.
Rashi tit wieder
Halashon katuv po.
Also er lernt man nicht normal.
By the way, then you wouldn't be able to understand what is Rabbanan Avdei, Rabashi Avdei Kebraita, Rabbanan
That's right.
Avdei
Yeah. Avdi.
That's pshat. What we have here is a kind of an alternative to say.
Last time recording from the
By the way,
How does it go alternative if the Mishnah is the Halacha Psika, not the Braita? So a Braita could be Cholek al Mishnah. We could go with the Braita.
yeah, that's what that's
Wasn't the Mishnah
State of
canonized
mind.
as authoritative law?
not for the
state of
Amoraim.
mind.
I think
What do you mean not for the
There's
Marim?
no other
What the Amoraim did,
Yeah.
what the Amoraim did, and they do all the time, by bringing Braitot, by bringing Toseftot,
Right.
they expand the halachic options they have in a far greater scope than what the Mishnah gives them.
Even though the whole concept of the Mishnah and by letting
Nachon.
out the Braita was not like that.
Nachon.
But this
But the
type of
Mishnah alone
thing,
brings
state of
avoidance
mind, yes, the
anyways.
state of mind
It's
is
an
the
important-
optional.
I see here something
So you
interesting.
can look at Psika, the
Even
mist
though
no
halacha psika-
lernen, the mist no
Halacha
down the
psika
same
means she'en aleo kushiyot v'tirutzim, as Rashi.
Nachon.
I see the toichen of these three examples
Right.
are particular hidirim, going the extra mile. Tippes dam kechadel is a chimera, is a
Right.
fnimashir sadin. Mari mudam al teviyusai is a technique in order for a person should not be nichshel. Should not be nichshel. You know, it's avadik. Ze kent aan a fopperai oog.
Right.
But initially, if you look in the sigya there, and the last thing also, I'm not so familiar with the subject there, but it seems like even though I'm ilim bedomim, it seems like also to be something that's you're going the extra mile. If I'm correct.
Jonathan, kannst du mir das sagen? Kannst du fragen, Martin?
Okay.
So which means to say, okay.
Right. No, that could be. I mean,
Halacha psika doesn't mean that, but I'm trying to see.
beseder, whether there is a logic in the examples. But one thing is interesting in the way the sugya works about very foundational question, which is that they bring an alternative to the Mishna of Ein Omdi, right, which comes from the Braita, from the Tosefta, and by that they expand the proper ways of religious experience. Soon we'll see that it's not the end.
And what is the experience of Mitoch Halacha psika?
That
What
it's an intellectual mode, right? You say, how do you enter? It's not meditative. It's not sha'achat, kavones, whatever the
Sophistication.
It's how do you make God present? You make God present through learning. Now that He's there, you approach it. This is why אינו מתפלל אלא בין העמודי, etc. למה מיום שחרב בית המקדש אינו לקדוש ברוך הוא אלא דלם. I would say, if you want to say, that's the scholar's response to Hasidim.
Right.
It's got a presence
But
of
he would say
mind.
today, most people do like the Brisa. How many people do meditation before they daven?
Right.
Stalin wasn't able to sleep until he signed death warrants. You have to have, if you don't pass on a shayla, you're not. It's like
Intellectual means זכות התורה,
No,
Presence of mind.
because I think it's not because of the Zchut Torah. Because how God is present before you. You read His words, you read His Torah. You're in a kind of dialogue or
Actually, the Ran says, what does it mean? Reb Sima ba'asher uvet kebraise, perish, letzliya metoch simcha.
No.
מתוך שמחה שכלו של אדם גובר.
ממש לא.
לא, הוא אומר, מתוך לימוד של תורה, של שכל, יש שמחה.
I'll tell you why he does it. Yeah, that's nice. That's nice.
Nice pshat.
Nice, but we will see soon another thing that's happening and why the Ran did it. Okay?
Is it like in the early times of this English, it was like a mere subjective religious experience. People were more into it, so that's why they like Moras Nefesh and all these Kodesh. But today, Tefillah became more kavua. There was less of I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, what I think. Look, I think we have here a whole. I would say the following: the starting point is a Mishna that becomes more and more expanded through two channels, either through Rabbi Lazar's or the Braita option. Let's read now the next.
Can I suggest a different? I think that not because the Ram says simcha,
So
not the
we're
Ram.
gonna
The
go
Ra'o.
to that.
I think maybe differently. Maybe it's the same thing what you're saying. But you're saying the old Purushim till now is the pastor's yira. This pastor is not yira, but toch charifut hasechel. You're coming not because the God's way is Torah. You connect the sigya beina amuda. That's a different sigya and brachos. It's more
Presence of mind.
you come with a whole presence of mind. Sichlo
יפה.
חריפות.
יפה.
לא בגלל שזה תורה, שזה הדיברו של המקום.
יפה, that's an option. בהחלט.
Not the same thing. You said it a little
I
different.
don't say same
You said
different.
it a little different nuance. You said.
Yeah, I'm saying you're giving us an option, a very powerful option.
Okay.
A very powerful option. Tanu Rabbanan. Now another Braita. אין עומדים להתפלל, לא מתוך עצבות ולא מתוך עצלות, ולא מתוך שחוק ולא מתוך שיחה, ולא מתוך קלות ראש ולא מתוך דברים בטלים, אלא מתוך שמחה של מצווה. Okay? מתוך שמחה של מצווה. Now, let's go. By the way, here the Kitvei Yad is very problematic. Do you have access to Ktav Yad Minchen?
Yeah, sure.
Achi Garsinan?
No, but there is on the side here, they show, Daguas, they show the Bika Safran, they'll show. And this, the copies that we have, usually they bring the
Oh, they don't show.
Okay, let's continue.
I'll say, they usually
I'll
pick
get you, I'll
this
get
up
you.
and-
Give me, because the Ktav Yad Minchen here is a beauty. Okay. By the way, that's a third alternative, which is,
Simcha Shel Mitzvah.
it's different than Ira, completely different than Achnoe, different than Meriris,
Psi halucha psika.
So
different Halacha Psi-
these opinions are so foundational.
That's
They're
why
trying to
they're,
say,
that's
what
why
is
they're
it-
on their
What is a
own.
person's
That's why they're
position?
not runs, they're all.
This is what I
By
said.
knowledge.
The
He's
question is,
kind
what is a person's position k'lapei his creator?
Nachon.
Should he be happy? Should he be miserable?
Amul hazeh, amul
Should he
hazeh.
be frightened? Should he be terrified?
Yeah, this is this sugya is the varieties of religious experience.
It means it's not only when you're standing.
This is a very foundational sugya, but it's interesting how it works
Yeah.
because it expands on the options that the Mishnah gives.
Das ist
you.
Jüdischkeit, das ist alles
The
Jüdischkeit.
Rambam
Just all
says-
options.
the
man,
Rambam Mishnah Torah
Why is
says,
it
how do you
autistic?
get to this
No.
perception?
Yeah.
Tichshi is burning Ramasa. This is in Yisod HaTorah.
Right.
In Sefer Mitzvahs he says, how do you get? That you learn the Torah, you know, so there's also like the same two options.
Right.
Either you're misburning the Beriya or you're learning. Something
Right.
like that.
Right.
Not a look up seeker, but
Okay, now we continue. By the way, here there is a brighter. Do you get?
I'm getting it, I'm getting it.
Okay,
I have
great.
it already.
Great. So now, Rabbi Yonasan will read us the real
I'm trying, you
version
have to
of
wait a
this.
minute, it's not so, you don't get it so fast.
You know the Hachi Garsinan. Do you know that site? Okay, I'll give you a tool.
Safaria will have it.
A very important. No. There is a very important tool. It's called Hachi Garsinan. Right? You do Hachi Garsinan. You get to Hachi Garsinan. You have to register or whatever, but it's free.
Friedberg.
And you type the place in Shas where you are. It will give you all the versions of the manuscripts of where you are, right? Now, it's such a great tool. Now, Ktav Yad Minchen is basically the only complete version of the Talmud. I mean, very good Ktav Yad. Dikdukei Sofrim based himself on in Minchen. I mean, there are some etc. But what's nice about Friedberg, it gives you Ktav Yad Oxford. It gives you the main Kitvei Yad that we have on the.
Well, from the
Once we
Knesset
used to
level.
work very hard to get all those ones. Now you just have it. And Ktav Yad Minchen here is beautiful, actually. I just want to say one thing. It's interesting that the real contrast here, Ela mitoch simcha, is a contrast that מתוך עצבות. אין עומדים להתפלל לא מתוך עצבות. Right? אלא מתוך שמחה, that's the actual contrast. There's all those other things, right? ולא מתוך עצלות, ולא מתוך שחוק, ולא מתוך שיחה, ולא מתוך קלות ראש, לא מתוך דברים בטלים, אלא מתוך שמחה של מצווה. Which is really, as was said, a completely different posture, either than מרירות or than יראה, or than דבר הלכה. Now, it says, וכן לא ייפטר אדם מחברו לא מתוך שיחה ולא מתוך שחוק ולא מתוך קלות ראש ולא מתוך דברים בטלים, אלא מתוך דבר הלכה. Right? And here Agaot Abach rightfully says in the Agahot and rightfully should be, how did we get to Dvar Halacha here? Right? No, it's not the Agaot Halacha, that's the Agra. Simcha Shel Mitzvah, right? He should depart from him in Simcha Shel Mitzvah.
What examples? You should only go to daven We take Simcha Shel Mitzvah. For example,
You should, I
give
mean,
charity,
Simcha Shel Mitzvah doesn't mean that you would perform the mitzvah before.
just the idea.
Yeah,
You're happy that you have the Torah mitzvahs.
Right. And that you come to Hashem happy that you can approach Him and with a sense of
Closeness and intimacy.
yeah, of gratitude ahead of time, etc. Now, and then he says, שכן מצינו בנביאים הראשונים שסיימו דבריהם בדברי שבח ותנחומים, which means they departed from us with דברי שבח ותנחומים, בשמחה. Right? Okay. Now, the reason for all the אלא מתוך דבר הלכה, the change in the נוסח is וכן תנא. Now, agro here,
That's Simcha Shel Mitzvah.
he deletes the וכן, rightfully. תנא, מרי ברדר אבונה ברדר הזה, אל יפטר אדם מחברו אלא מתוך דבר הלכה, שמתוך כך זוכרהו. Right? So there are different modes of separating from your friend. כי עד רב כנעל ולרב שימי בר אשי מפום נהר עד בית צניתא דבבל, כמעט להתם אמר לנו ודאי דאמרי אינשא צניתא לא ייתנו מאדם ראשון ועדש, etc. And then there is an example of how he separated in Dvar Torah. Okay? So what we have here is the work of the sugya in a way of expanding the possible forms of standing, right? Either Dvar Halacha or Simcha. That's alternatives to Koved Rosh and the line of Ira. And then we have the outlier of Merirut, right? So we come back to the work of the sugya. What is the work of the sugya? If you want to make a methodological point, right? The work of the sugya is to expand on the. You can't open it?
Try to register myself.
For Achagar Sinai. Okay, I'm registered already. So no, but I don't have Anyway, we're gonna send you because in Ktav Yad Mincha, what's beautiful is that it brings that אין נבואה שורה, לא מתוך עצבות ולא מתוך דיס, אלא מתוך שמחה, שנאמר, ויהי כנגן המנגן, ותנו חלך רוח השם. He brings it
in this conversation.
Yeah, here. Yeah. And also there is no, and the Tikkun of Agro is already in the text. In the text. In Agro.
The Gru was Mechavan the Ktav Yad Mincha.
Exactly.
No, he didn't have the consistency. The Gru was Masaka Midata.
Yeah, he ממש מתקן, sometimes scandalously.
Yeah. He didn't have Kisvei.
הוא מתקן. הגרו
לפי
מתקן.
דעתו.
כל מקום שיש לו שאלה, הוא מתקן, והרבה פעמים...
הוא לא סמך על כתבי יד.
לא, הוא לא ראה כתבי יד. אוקיי. אוקיי, now...
So the initial part of the sugya was to try and explain Koved Rosh successfully or unsuccessfully. Beyond that, it's a whole different...
Right.
They're not mechuyav anymore to the Mishnah.
Right. There are two ways in which the sugya expands on the Mishnah. Either by rereading it, right? Or by bringing more material of Tanaim that provide alternative authoritative options. right? We'll go. That's we see in different places. But it's fine. Don't trouble yourself with that. Okay. Now we'll continue. Okay, let's continue to read. Actually, someone would like to read a little bit. I'm
Moshe, you can read, and then Moshe is going to
I can't do
explain.
it. I'm not so good
So
in
that's where
Aramaic.
you're to the Choyves
I'm
Amid.
not good in Aramaic, only Hebrew English.
To be honest, no, das ist schon vorgelernt. Do it, no?
תנו רבנן, המתפלל צריך שיכוון את ליבו.
Okay, but I'm going to say it in
You say it in whatever.
Avara Chasidit.
That's
In
more
Yiddish.
pleasurable.
In Yiddish.
Okay, תנו רבונן,
That's
המספל...
במרירס, you say.
לא יודע,
No, I just.
לא יודע, אין להם שום פסטר.
Right.
מה שאומרים, תנו רבונן, המספל לצורך שיכוון את ליבו לשמיים, אבל שאול אומר, סימן הדובר, תוכם ליבו תקשב אוזניך, כן? צריך התכוונות. תני אומר בידי ככה מנהגו של רבי עקיבא, כשהוא מתפלל עם הציבור, הוא היה מקצר ועולה פני תורך הציבור, וכשהוא היה מתפלל בינו לבין עצמו, איזה אדם מניחו בזווית זיהו, ומצא בזווית אחרת, כל כך למה? בפני קריאות והשתחוויות. עכשיו תסביר, באיזה נקודה אנחנו רוצים להגיע לרבי עקיבא? כשהוא מתפלל עם הציבור, או כשהוא מתפלל בינו לבין עצמו?
I didn't understand
With
the
both.
question.
We want to get to with both. When we were selves, we want to be mild.
Yeah,
What do you bring from Rabbi Akiva?
Rabbi Akiva, we bring. What do you mean, v'chen haya?
Yeah.
V'chen haya is not a proof,
Mm-hmm.
right?
It's like
אמר, כך היה מנהגו. That's the way. That's the way the Rabbi Akiva differentiates between his tefillah in tzibur.
He has more tkavnut when he's in it's like a crazy tkavnut.
Yeah, I would say if we want to describe his mode, is ecstatic.
ecstatic mode when he's bichidut.
Right. He
In
loses
tzibur.
himself.
Right.
Ecstasy in Greek is
Muchol.
Getting
He makes mucholim.
exactly
Muchols.
right.
Okay.
So that's another,
What?
by the way.
Sufis.
The roof had gezegd extasie, Rav Soloveitchik, ik denk zo.
אומר בחייה ברעבה, לעולם יתפלל אדם בבית שיש בחלונות, שנאמר וכיוון פסיכן לי, פסוק בדניאל, יוכל יספל עוד כל היום קילוי, כמפורש על דניאל וזימנן תלוסה, יוכל משבו לגוי לא החלה כבר, פנאמר די עובד נקד מזנו, אם בפוררי, יוכל יתפלל אדם לכל רוח שיצא, תמלוימה לקובל ירושלים. That means נגד ירושלים. יוכל יקול מבס אחס, כמפור, מבט אחת should be all three תפילות, not the three זמנים. כמפורש על דוד, תכסיב ערב ובוקר וצהריים. יוכל ישמיע קוילו בתפילוסוי, כמפורש על חנה, שנאמר וקוילו לא ישמע. בסדר? נמשיך?
Go ahead, go ahead.
יוכל ישאל אדם צרכיו ואחר כך יתפלל. אחר כך יתפלל, זאת אומרת, מה זה יתפלל? שבח, כן? פה זה יתפלל לשבח, קודם בקוש וצרכיו, כמפורש על שלוים משניהם ולשמוע לרינו ולתפילו, זאת אומרת, רינו זה תפילו, שבח זה קודם, תפילה זה בקשה, אין אוים בבקשה, אחר אמה זה יציב, אבל אחר התפילה, אפילו כסיידה, וידי שיום הכפירים אוימה. זאת אומרת, קודם צריך שבח. את מנם אומר, אחי, מה? No?
I mean, it's complicated because it might be that Bakasha is the Bakasha of Yachid here, but we're not going
Okay,
to get into
okay. את מנם אומר חיב רש"י מרב, אף פי שאומר שואל אודם צלוחה בשמיים תפילו, אם בא לומר אחת תפילוסה, אפילו כסיידה שם כפירים אומר. Okay.
Right. Here is clearly, where does the Yachid entitled to bring in
That's the kind
like
of
I said
his
last
own...
week.
Yeah, we talked about
Yeah.
it. Okay.
אומר לנו,
Now we're going back to Chana. Yeah, okay.
למשה.
1 second.
Go ahead. You're doing well.
No, you do.
How do we bring
No,
from
I'm
Chana if
okay.
we said
You know,
Chana is a difficult case and we can't learn from her? And also the first in the Rabun and Tura Shechav Lev L'Shamayim, that's a fourth way that's also different than the Mishnah?
No, because
No.
it doesn't explain anything about the way in which what is the actual posture of the kavanah. What is the mental content of kavanah, right?
What is he
You
saying?
can do libel shemaim in all kinds of ways. You're saying besimcha, be'atzvas,
Right.
be'dis.
These are all different options where you can find yourself.
see
Different
from this
people
community-
have
But
different
we
options.
we still have in Rabbi Akiva an ecstatic mode that you are entitled to do, or that you do if you are in Yochid.
Okay,
I
ich kann
see-
noch eine Sache, was zu sagen, du, Fuhleinen, so, dann können wir sie die
I see one thing.
Die andere Sachen, was wir sehen,
Now
jede
we're
Sögen später
formulating-
Drusches.
That's
When
a
the
little
Gemara
bit.
reaches this point, we're formulating how tefillah is betzibah in a besmedrash, which wasn't the initial discussion. The initial discussion is how an individual has to hand before his creator. Here we're talking about different situations when you're davening betzibah in shul, how you should daven, where, who you makatz. First of all, we're talking about we're talking about Rebbe Akiva, Chushimas Palim Matzibah. That's where this discussion begins. And the shul, the place where you daven, should be have chaloinas.
There's something
We
also
see-
about davening
we
with
see-
me.
Yeah,
davening,
we
but
left
it's-
the issue of kavanah. I mean,
We're going to a more
We're
formal.
focusing on the passage, the professor says.
Right.
I think we're talking about more.
But
formal
Sibba, it's a
how
little
Sibba.
bit more difficult. Stammes to be all these moods and all the in Bechlal
Right.
Kovid
Sure,
Rosh.
anything
Why
that it's relevant for the
It's
shir
only
the professor
the
wants to
name,
give, he's gonna mitzayen it.
It's
So that's why, let's wait that he
It's supposed to
should,
be that way.
because,
It's supposed to be more of a
maybe he missed
schmuck type of
something.
dance.
no, we did, but we're
Kovid
sure
Rosh is
that
the
it's-
opposite.
as
He said the
we wouldn't call, I wouldn't
Oh,
call
my
it
God.
on the talk, something I think it's English. Omer Rab Nina, kam hilchse gewitte, ikke le mashwa mahane kru,
What are the
gaan.
options?
We gaan met de beres al liba, we gaan met spalen zoek shichaven liba.
It's another option.
רק שפתי הנאות, מכאן המתפלל שיכתוב בשפתיו, וכוילה לא ישמע, מכאן שאסור להגביה כוילה בתפילוסי, להחשבי עילה לשקוירו, מכאן ששיקר עושה לספל. בקיצור, לומדים פרטי הלכות.
Now Chana is becoming
המודל לתפילה הרביעייה.
now, but we have the memory of the first
Going
line.
back to Rebbe Eliezer.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right.
So the later Amoraim going back to Rebbe Eliezer.
Yeah.
It's like I said, that's the only place we find the Nach. That is
Why
really
is she
a story of
authoritative?
tefillah.
Why is Chana
Why?
authoritative?
'Cause
It's a
what-
story about a person.
So this is
Yeah.
the kasha what Chazal asked in Amud Aleph, and
No, that
we
wasn't
see
the
that
kasha.
The kasha was
Immediate
what-
tfai. It doesn't say that it's
Exactly.
wrong.
Okay, we're
Kasha
going back
was-
to the beginning, Taka.
Right. So now, but now we
By
see.
the way,
Shabbos
I
not
just
like,
want to say, in the pshat of the pasuk, it's interesting because Eli sees her, and Vayachshava Eli Leshikora,
Right.
because he
not
doesn't
Not used to
recognize
such a guy
it.
in a tefillah.
Yeah, and that becomes the paradigm of tefillah.
Because God listened to her.
Yes.
Exactly.
That's why.
Because it worked. Yeah.
Yeah, it's here the.
But maybe
The-
you have to be a woman for that.
No, it's interesting because
doesn't better than
if you
us.
think
Maybe
about
the
it dialectically, if you think about the process here is the master of the ritual, the Cohen, right? He owns the
We ask.
protocol.
Yeah.
He sees that woman, and she's completely outside the way it's being done,
He has her own ritual.
and that becomes the paradigm of our tefillah. It's interesting. Okay,
Okay.
continue.
ויום אלי עד מוס תשתקוין, ich weiß was, אומר הבלוזה מכאן, לראות חווי דובת שעין הוגן צורך להכיחו. אוקיי, זה רבי אלעזר, וטען חנה בתוי מלוי אדוני, אומר אלה וטעם אל יוסי בחנינה.
We see that it calls a woman a Chava.
וטען, יוני דבוס פניון יוני? אז חשי?
I'm giving commentary.
Verstaan, dat is kan je dat game commentary.
To me, it's the first time in 100 years that I'm saying it, so I don't want.
Burgers is nog gemeen. Watan gaan we toe met loy adoni om ele betar beis bechanina. Om loy uden at bedu ze, loy li khakoy de shul lechu. Cuz sha'atu khshdani bedu ze and it's not true.
The case.
Ik de amre hoch om loy uden atu lav ik schine bri khakoy de gaboch. שדן תוני לקו חוי ולא דן תוני לקו חיז מי לא ידע אישו קשת ריח הנויכי יין בשי חלוש שסיסי ומרבלוזן מכאן הנחשה בדובר שעין בו שצורך להדיע אל תתן המסייך לפני בס בליעל ומרבלוזה מכאן השיקה שמספל וכלי אוהב לבדזורי כסיב אוכל לפני בס בליעל אם בעיר הנדח אז כסיב הוא שם יייצי אנושם בני בליעל בקל בחור מה לעל נבוי דזורי אף כאן נבוי דזורי ויען איילה ויום מלכי לשולם ומלבלוזה מכאן לחושת חווירוי בדובר שעין בו שצורך לפייסרי ולא יועיד שצריך לברכו שנאמר ולקייס וריתנה שלו סייכו. So you see,
Right.
Rabluza learns all kind of dinim of choshet b'chshayim and how you approach it and how.
And we see Rabluza is the
Rabluza
Mara
is-
Deshmata. Soon we're going
Because
to...
he is the sigi of Chanukah is very important.
Right.
He is.
Yeah.
Okay, now we come to very interesting stuff that we're going to get
מעצים את התפילה
explication.
של חנה.
That we're going to accept what is Merira.
Okay.
Right.
נתיד נהידה ותוי מהשם צבוקויז, אומר רבי לוזר, ביום שבו לקדוש ברוך הוא סלומי, לא יהיה אודם שקורא לקדוש ברוך הוא צבוקויז. No one used this צבויז, this שם, עד שבו סחנה וקורא את צבויז. אומר חנה פני הקדוש ברוך הוא, that's the twill of bitterness, ריבונו של עולם. מכל צבע צבאות שבראתו בנמיכו, כושה בעניכו שתתני בין איכות, מושל מועדו ודוימה, ומילא בוס ודם שעושה סידה לעבודיו, בואוני איכות ועומד על הפסח, אומר להם תני לי פריסה אחס, ולא ישגיחו אליו. דוחק ונכס אצל המלך, אומר לאדוני המלך, מכל סידה שעשיסו כושה בעניכו, לתן לי פריסה אחס.
Right. That's powerful. Right? It says, are you so stingy?
You can't give me.
That's what we wrote.
Yeah. From everything you have, you can't give me just
One piece of bread.
one piece of bread?
What does it mean that
It's
she's the
not-
first one to call him Tzivois? Isn't Tzivois something that says before that, like in Tehillim and whatever?
No, call by davening.
Limit is not
It's
Right.
the show at Torah that it's but
She argued.
But this is the
But it's a very creative...
using it to
It's a very
tefillah.
creative reading of Hashem
Elkim
Tzvaot.
Tzivois Shuvna.
So what it means
You have
Hashem
so
Tzvaot,
much.
you have so much.
It's
Give me
a
something.
form of Sheva, right? But it becomes a mode of
It's
complaint.
It's
right?
Kalilis Kaina. You're going into
Right.
like,
The Babel.
I'm trying to make a
Yes.
deal with you. Come
Yeah, I mean, Hashem Tzvaot, you have so much, you can give so little. I mean,
Dit is schon einfach erger.
it's the cruel indifference of the ones who have,
And
right?
ignoring and just
Yeah, it's...
And now
It will
now
put you in-
Rabbi Elazar is continuous and it goes even farther,
Exactly.
more than Merirot even.
Right.
Even like by strashing, like threatening.
Right.
What is this? It's not Merirot, it's more than
Well,
Merirot.
people who are bitter do different things, right?
they do crazy stuff.
Okay. Imru tira.
Set.
Umar beluze Khana fna kodesh baruch rabban shloim. Imru mitte im laf tira eilig ve staat befnai al-kuna bali. Kimen ze bestrin mashkela mein soite wie at eus traf geflast ze nehmen we nix so wenn es zura. Sie mur okay, die mur goes in am de scheide honig en man de moise kulen fke de shop en man de moise yeledes betza yeledes bereivig de kai yeledes khum shoyn kai yeledes khulem. Okay, Moshe, if you could a little bit elaborate on this again. Okay, yeledes khulem, shoyn yeledes lavainem. Ketzure yeledes richem Michael and
Is it Philosoph?
is the Tanya when ich wenn ich so mal mit Moshe Kulen fke de bishmo. Omer kivem kan yaich kol a kul skillan. When you start to read Zishel Kilken of Kedis, Melamed, it doesn't help for an akura, it only helps to make it more smooth. Yeledes betzai, yeledes bereivig, ketzure, yeledes arichem, shchol, yeledes levainem, eichad, yeledes shnaim, is mayim ru tireh. Okay, then we're anachanam, lefi this pshat, is dibber toide, krushim an Yehuda. Okay, fine.
But this is another version of,
From bitterness,
yeah, it's a form
More
of
challenging.
challenging.
I'm gonna force
right?
you.
It's confronting.
I'm gonna force you. I'll
I'm
have
gonna,
a baby. I'll
if
make
you're not giving me, I'm gonna find a way that you'll be forced to do. it.
Shirabas who
Yeah. By the way, all this is an extremely creative reading of the
Chana.
Tfilah of Chana, which is completely, how would I say, penitential. It's tachanunim in the most modest form, right?
quiet.
quiet, אם רעות תראה בעוני אמתך ונתת לי זרע אנשים. ותדור
Why did
נדר.
they do it? Why did they do it?
It's fascinating. You see that Rabbi Lezer not
He
only
understood
wants
that
to,
to be-
Rabbi Lozer not only wants to, wants to bring
Real
Merirut into the
cast, real
term
cast.
Koved Rosh.
Looks like they're in Gulas, and
Desperation,
they're in
desperation.
She
Gulas.
said, "Ishik Shas
He's in Gulas, the blues, and he
that-
feels
that-
that the
that
pain
he
is
was
so
a
big,
valid
and he wants to
valid
justify
side.
such a kind of tefillah.
But that's a Ishik
Yeah,
Shas
or-
Riach in our
He
case.
says, yeah,
She's like
could be,
tough.
could be it's historical, could be it's, he wants to a mode of prayer, standing that is confrontational.
Interesting.
it's really, it's
Cleanest and
powerful.
Koinoi, we see that.
It's powerful, right?
Interesting.
And you see now the Meriris, how it's developed through a complete reading, right?
How his interpretation of what Chana did, his
Right.
imagination rather.
Exactly, as a
So,
flow.
And Hannes put him
זה אין דפסיקים.
Right.
כן, זה גם פסח חז"ל נזרים אותי.
Yeah. It's really,
It's a very
it's fascinating, right? It's,
feminist.
we have gone very far away from Ira. As we are moving with this model,
We're going to people who are broken.
I don't know, a different
destroyed.
approach as a happy van jaren.
very,
We're
very
going
far
for a
away.
road of
Read it as
Hashemini
a-
Log
Be
Hope.
threatening God is not jaren.
On the
Right,
8th of October, how people felt broken and destroyed.
right.
And that's
No, it's powerful. I mean,
like we say, you don't want us here, we'll pack up and leave.
yeah. It's really rare in the history of religions.
Interesting, they don't use
To have-
Moshe as Chanan al Hashem and like
Soon
that.
we're going to get to Moshe. Moshe will appear as the next model in a very
Or
interesting
you have by the Chet
other way.
Egel and he doesn't, you know.
Yeah, it will come.
Okay, so the Gemara continues that be'ayna mesechu v'lo tishkach sam mesechu and the satan mesechu omer b'yosef v'nina gimel amuses aluli lamu omer chanaf na kodesh baruch Ribono Shlom shloshe bit kamisa berusa be'ishu v'omer la shloshe div kamisa v'ayla han nida v'chala lukas nairis kelim v'varti lachas b'man. She continues to
Right.
challenge
And by the
God.
way, the
Lead.
Amatecha rings completely different in the Pshat.
Sense of matecha achnaa
Exactly.
is like
It's
Okay.
right. It's a remarkable work that Rabbi Lozor is doing here through all the sugya, right? Of developing a different approach to tefillah, in kind of triggered by Koved Rosh, right? It's powerful. Yeah.
Okay, ונסעת על המסכת זעיר אנוש, מה זעיר אנוש? אוקיי, ומרב גב ודוברין, שמיל המזעיר שמוישך שני אנוש, מני נישול ודובת מן שמיל, רבי יוחנן המזעיר ששוקל כשני אנוש, מני מוישה והנש, למוישה המלכן שמי קודש שמוי, בול נאמר זעיר אנוש, זעיר שמובלע בין אנשים, shouldn't stand out, כי הוא סבדים אם לא יעורך ולא גיץ ולא גוטן ולא אילם ולא ימצוכה ולא גיחה ולא חוכם ולא טיפש, אוקיי? אני או אישו הנצא וסימוכם בזה, אומר בשיבי לייבי,
Rasha.
מה? what?
זה לא כדאי.
עוד משיב אליי מכאן שאסור לאישה בתוך 4 אמה של תפילה. So he also goes with this theme that we Chanach is the model of tefillah,
Right.
how you daven. And another says Pelalti, Rebbe Luzer, Shmiel Moira Locher from Rabbi Hoyu. Here you see Rebbe Luzer was oisig b'chlal in the whole parish. It's not
Right.
only tefillah, it's nothing to do with tefillah.
Absolutely.
שנאם אבישטרי ספר, והיו בסנר אל איילי, בשם דישת ספר, הביא הנר אל איילי, אלו, אומר איילי, קורא כהן, לייסה ולשחית, אז חזין לשמיד, המהדה בוסי כהן, למשחית, אני need a coin to shech, אומר לי, למה לכי לדיר בוסי כהן למשחית, שחיתה בזוהר קשי, you don't need a coin. אייסה כמה דה איילי, מה מנו לך, how do you know that? אומר לה, מי כסיב ושוחת הכהן, the pastor said וקריבי הכהן כסיב, that חז"ל learn, הקריבי means מקבול ואילך, when you kabul the dam, mitzvahs kehena, מכאן, שחיתה שקשי בזוהר, that only from the kabula you need kehena. אומר לה, מה משפק armors, he's saying it's like a true, but מי מויר לוחר לפני רבך, ימור מנוח לפני רבך, תוכל מויר לפני רבך חיים מיסה. אסי יחלנה וקצפך כמי, אני הוא אישו הנשא בסמוכם בזה, ואומר לה, שפקדי לאנשה, בעין רחמה, ויוב לך רבה מנהי, you're gonna have another child. אומר לה, no. על הנער הזה הספללתי, הזה, וחנה מדברת על ליבו, אומר בשי, now the Mura goes back to the sigya for Tfilas Chana. It's like we're mixing up a little bit the sigya. Okay. וחנה מדברת על ליבו, אומר הבלוזה משם יוסי בן זמרה, על איסקה ליבה, אומר פלמבון שלום, כל מה שלעושה באישו לברוסו דובר איכה לבטולה, עיניים לירויס, אזניים לשמויה, חויתם לרייך, פה לדבה, ידיים לס במלוכה, רגליים להרג לאדם להייניק בן, לאדם אלו שנסעת על ליבי, לא מלוי להייניק בן, תן לי בן והייניק בן. This is another form of way from bitterness and to ask like, yeah. It's like the opposite of what the Akaida says on Ruchel, that Yaakov says, and it says the only purpose of a woman is only to have babies. No, you have other purposes. But she's like arguing, I want to have a baby, and if not, why do I have this? Okay. Woman that blues b'shem Yosef v'zimra kol Yosef b'tanas b'Shabbos koilin exal din shashem mishunu is very powerful. Af bekan chozim nefrum many din onik Shabbos. That's an interesting concept that is Ma'atik Antai. Und Nachman Witzig Leisef Tanas Latanisa. Want to say something on that? Or?
No.
Okay, Tom, this is Tam Derech Gilgul.
Yeah, because
They
it's
call them Meiri,
Rabbi
Derech Gilgal Sigis.
That's because the combination of Rabbi Lazar with
B'Shem Rabbi Yossi Bazim. So like Rabbi Meiri says, Derech Gilgal. We start already this kind. Okay. V'omer Blazer, Chana.
Now we come back to
This is
right.
the teeth of Wulen Klappa
Right.
V'omer Blazer, Chana Ticha Dvurim Klappa Mala.
Thank you, Yonasan. You're doing wonderful, really.
Shenema,
He has experience from every day.
Shenema, v'tespala Hashem, Melamed Sheticha Dvurim Klappa Mala. V'omer Blazer,
שהתיך על השם.
yes, על Hashem.
תתפלל על השם.
Yeah. ואומר הבלוזה, אלה יהיו יתיך דברים כלפי מעלה, שנאמר,
ואתה הסבות
that you the goyrem,
Right.
that the saftas liba machiranet, אומר השם אלא יצוק, ביניים שחוזה הקדוש ברוך הוא והוידה ללוי, זה ואשר אלי אויסי. That means שאשר אלי אויסי, so you see, even though it's saying Asher Oisi is not in the same psukim that it's a pusik in Michu, but the Gemara brings that you see that's what the Gemara says in Sikkah that I made the Yitzhahar. Omer b'chomer b'chanina ilamud l'shulish mekrus aluli nesmoitoti raglaim shesoni Yisrael means velush sagenur on Klal Yisrael. Chad chsev Asher Oisi v'chad chsev henek choim b'yad hayoytze kain itam b'yad b'ais Yisrael kain atam b'yad Yisrael v'chad chsev Yehudi b'ais Yisrael v'chad chsev Asher Oisi es leib even b'psarchem v'satchem leib busa. Po b'om m'hocha be'esrichi etam b'kirvechem v'sisi es Asher b'chikit alaychi Chiket Alaychi, ואומר אלוזה, שואל, now is another memory, ואומר אלוזה מוישה תיר דברים כלפי מעלה, שנאמר ויספל למוישה להשם, אל תקרא אל השם, אלא על השם, שכאן דביירה בלויזה ויעקב, קודם לאלפן einen לאeinen אלפן. Okay. Was? That's why he was talking Matir doing Klappa Mala. Dvayra b'yana Omer Mehocha. V'di Zuav, what does it mean v'di Zuav? V'dai Zuav.
What is he saying? Because they called it.
No, that's why he had the legitimacy to darshan
It's
like
the same
that.
sound, but what is
No,
he saying?
that's why he
Because
had the
called it-
legitimacy to darshan like that. There is such a kind of way to use an aleph and an eye. It's not the same sound.
Interchangeable.
By you it's the same sound, not by them. But by them it's not the same sound. Even though they still are machalif, so you could use such, you can make
So
such a
what was
kind of
Rabbi
reading.
Yaakov doing? He was
reading the psikim differently. He was reading the psikim now at Moshe Rabbeinu Matiyah doing Klappa Mala. Why? Because he was saying v'di Zuav, my v'di Zuav, Omad v'ay Rabbi Yanai, Kach on Moshe.
Bledman couldn't pronounce rightly on Aleph and Ash. He had a pronunciation.
But it's a geworden way of exactly Amos is.
Wait a second, where did you see that? It's bekannt?
Okay, it's nicht wichtig für the
I don't know what you are doing.
v'di Zuav, Omad v'ay Rabbi Yanai, Kach on Moshe v'nakadosh Baruch Hu.
Let's check out the thing.
בואי נשלם, של כסף וזו ששמעת
No, it's the
לישראל
way of davening.
עד שאומרי די גום שעושה צועגו, because now he's accusing Hashem that he is the סיבה of the sin. אומר דרעיינה אין הרי נוער מתוך כיפה של טייב מתוך כיפה של בוסה. אומר לבאשה מוש אודן של פולק חישה בעלס אייבל מחילה קשינה וסמבייטס בוי אומר למי גון לו שתיים מבייטס בי אלה קשינה שחלתיכו. אומר לכי ברב במדויכן מוש אודן מייחד שואל הבן חיצה סוך יחידה ושקאי בתולה כיסה צמולה ושיע פייסה שזוינס מה יויס אויס הבן של היחתו. אומר באחה בלעד רבין ומשאי שהיינדם אין שמולה קרייסה זו נבישה שנאמר כמריסכם ויסבו יספי ויירון ליבה על קיין שכיחני נחנו ממאוחה ורמלו ויחד ושכחת את השם אבונה ממאוחה ואוכו בסוף ודי שנפונו איבסי ממאוחה וישמי ישרו וישמי ישירים ויבד אומר לשמינוכן ויואנס לפנאשה שחוז לקוש בלך והוידה למוישה שנאמר, זה auch ein bisschen ein Pasta für Kovet Rosh, wie lange Menschen können sitzen mit Kovet Rosh, שנאמר, בקיסר הבייס להם, וזוהב אוסי לבר.
So we have, soon we're gonna, basically we have the theme of Atachat. Beautiful, thank you.
Thank you very much.
No, seriously, I mean, I should keep silent and you, but basically what we have here is the theme of a thing which is unprecedented in the history of religions altogether, of a posture of blaming, etiach, shifting the guilt to God as a mode of davening. which is all
Is
basically
it unprecedented in any religion? There's no
Yeah.
such thing in any religion?
no.
Wow.
Christianity, they don't have it.
No.
And it means that
By the way,
pagan.
Christians never understand the Jews in that respect.
No?
No. It feels completely alien and foreign. This intimacy, this kind of intimacy.
But it
where-
started by Avram already, you know, with Sodom.
What?
Avram already did it with Sodom, yeah? He didn't let God,
but then God
turn
asks
over.
him for
Ach
advice.
mishputim adabar boy by, who is that? Kennst rechnet es nigen.
Yeah, I mean, you have biblical precedents.
Yeah,
you know,
Moshe is the
Eicha-
strongest in this respect.
Eicha is the most bitter form of.
Avram Avinu did it already with Saddam.
That's right.
Yeah,
He
but
was
there,
arguing with him
but
that
there,
you're not, like, you're
Yeah.
not.
He was begging him.
Yasa Mishpat, Shofet Kaloretz Yasa Mishpat, that's also a certain.
No,
yeah,
but
there is
nobody-
beginnings. Here it takes.
But Moshe is the strongest. But Cheta Egel, you see, he like goes full out.
Right. He
No.
says, yeah, I mean,
No,
clearly.
we haven't here saying, God, you're wrong. You got it wrong.
Yeah.
You're unfair. This
Who
is not
said
right.
that?
Moshe.
That's what we see here.
Yeah.
But interesting that two things. First of all, that Reb Luzer himself says in Sikkah that this is not made for only for Uden Gudel to do it. He says that that's why Leivi Itzle come the Rebbe because it's Matiach Durim Klapamal. Reb Luzer himself. So how does it go here? Then when he explains this is the essence. No, but it looks like we want to give us the Anugaf and Tefillah. This is what it looks like. The whole sugya. When he himself says in Sukkah that's only for Uden Gudel.
Right.
And-
Levi etiach dvarim
Yeah,
k'lapei mala
but the
ve'itla.
Blues Padah says that.
Right,
So
right.
how does it go together with our sugya when he says that here it looks like he wants to give us the pasture of tefillah?
Right.
So
I don't know.
How does it go
He's
together?
retracting.
I don't know.
He's
He
retracting.
kind of
Nou, maar Shiva Levi zegt dingen met hem, maar bedoel.
maybe he got.
Shiva Levi did say differently in this right shot. Shiva Levi says,
אולי הוא נבהל ממה שהוא אמר. But no, but I don't know the answer. What I'm saying is the following. I'm saying here that Rabbi Luzer, who's the Mara Deshmata, by the way, he didn't finish yet the work. Right? He'll continue the work with Moshe. He will move from Hana to Moshe, right? In a different manner.
But maybe by Moshe you see the justification to that. Because we see in Moshe the justification to be Medir Dvurim Klapamala is because it's a Chil Shem Shemayim. Moshe is Madgish when he's Matir Dvurim. Moshe is after Madgish, and this is you can maybe give the justification to talk like that because it's a Chil Shem Shemayim. What happens
it's not-
if you so b'soifa shel dover it's not a atrasa.
It's not a
It's
trasa.
atrasa l'shem
Yeah.
to say that you have to do it. If not,
Soon
what
we're
kind of
gonna-
tzavuas do you have? What kind of
Soon we're gonna get to Moshe.
We
no,
have
I'm,
even
that's what
today.
I'm trying
You're
to say.
right.
It's not
You're right.
atrasa.
It's a completely different
we have
thing.
even today-
It's actually a reason. He says, look, if you do that, you'll harm your reputation.
Right. So maybe this also
think
bachana
about
about all this kind of
We have
things.
even today people have mechanishum katanas of the Rebbeinu Shalom. You
Right.
can't,
Right.
like when we talk about Holocaust theology,
Right.
Of course.
the Haridische approach is like there's no message.
Every day
tension,
Batachnim you say that. Every
If you
day
see God,
Batachnim,
you don't have
always say that.
questions.
Lumu Yamri, and you say that every day
I'm
Batachnim.
asking
No,
maybe
it's
that
just
maybe
you're
even
trying to find a way
Chana,
out.
it's not just
the
atrasa.
glory,
It's like
then a chil
we're
Hashem.
really believing
Like
that Hashem is
people-
tzvaos. So she's saying, listen, how are you gonna defend your title tzvaos?
Absolutely.
So it's not just atrasa. It's with a seriousness and a bitterness, yes. But it's like demanding that of God. It's not just chutzpah.
No, of course, it has a logic to it, you know, but it's, you know, it's...
Yeah. I'm asking. I'm just saying.
How do we reconcile Chana's not accepting God, what God is doing to Avram Avinu with Al-Qaeda? Here you have somebody God's taking away his son and he's not, like, where's that, the Tir Dvurim? God could have answered, you know what, Chana, don't be such a woman talking like a negative woman. Look what Avram Avinu did. What is the debate? The Tir Dvurim, you gave me a breast. You gave me a kid, you told me to be makar. Like, where's the...
Kasha from us. This is my kasha from
No,
us.
we're trying...
No, Chana this is a gewalt. What I mean, God could have said, but God didn't say. God doesn't.
What is the message?
Because there is places there is a message of Al-Qaeda, but here's the place, the message how Tefillah has a makom to say that.
Yeah, how he pushes it through and
Yeah,
through.
why do you?
No,
feel
there
that?
is a difference between, if you want to make harmony, which you, no need to make a harmony, it's fine. You can say there is a difference between being commanded to do something,
Commanded.
right, and being davening for getting something. There might be a difference here in terms of the... But what I want to show is the work of the sugya, if we want to speak about what does the sugya do here.
Because I want to ask, because you're asking, so what are we doing here when we're reading the whole sugya? The first is saying what we're doing is explaining how to learn a sugya. Because we start the sugya with a memra from a loser. I don't think before the professor learned now, you'll see even 2 amudim later, more than a block later,
Still expanding
this kind of thought. We didn't finish with that thought. This is what he wants to... It's more the methodology than this varte in the sugya. This is what we're learning now.
And, so you see, and clearly, there is something religiously extremely bold and creative. But you also... And it's done through Chana, but rereading Chana's, Amatecha, 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 3 times is actually... etc., etc. And it's in a rather, I would say, fascinating response to Koved Rosh. I mean, it takes the Koved Rosh to such different direction, right? So you have mitoch Dvar Halacha, you have mitoch Simcha, and then you have mitoch Merirut, and the Gemara will give a lot of space to the theme of Merirut in its different variations through reading Chana as a legitimate approach.
Yeah, but I'm trying to understand.
Yeah.
You ask an average observant Jew today to understand Rabbi Eliezer ben Azar is such, so Rabbi Eliezer ben Pedas is such concepts. He's going to tell you this is what he had Kabula Kvirchol from Miyagir. 1 second.
Yeah.
But what is Rabbi Eliezer ben Pedas himself doing according to your understanding? He has an opinion that you need to daven a certain way, and he makes a whole discussion as if Chana is saying it. Because the text is not the Torah, because the text is open for interpretation, and I have a key to interpret it, I have a message to give you, I'll find it in there. Yeah. Or did he make kabel from his rebbes?
No.
Was there kabula?
No. And if he was mekabel from his rebbes, you ask, and what his rebbes think? I don't. Let's leave the ordinary Jew, Orthodox Jew, because he's the most boring person in the world. I mean, we wouldn't be sitting and learning what he thinks, right?
Right. No, if you ask the Blues Ben Pedas in public,
the Gemara
what
is
he's
far
saying,
more.
he's going to tell you that.
When I teach sometimes yeshiva bochers, and I see one thing. They have a methodological principle, which is from different interpretive alternatives. There might be the fourth physics, but the wrong physics. Let's say choose the less interesting, right? The least interesting. Why? It's threatening. But the Gemara is far more interesting, right? You take a fellow sitting in Rabbi Eliezer ben Dos, right? He comes to, he comes from Bavel to Eretz Israel, right?
He comes what?
From Bavel to Eretz Israel, right?
He wants to forget all the Torah's Bavel.
And he sits there. And you have to understand a figure in the 3rd century is far more interesting than the.
But Moshe, what he's doing is he's taking.
What he's doing is says look.
He's ask something. Let the professor answer.
He's approaching a Mishna, right? Mishna says, "En עומדים להתפלל מתוך כובד ראש." מנעני מילי, right? Minane Mile, and he brings Vehi Marat Nefesh. Okay. Vehi Marat Nefesh. That's Koved Rosh.
But wait a second.
And then he builds. Then he builds a whole theme of a stance in Tfilah, of a posture, that is confrontational. By reading Hannah's prayer, that's Marat Nefesh, right? That's an extremely creative, imaginative figure, right? He wants to expand.
He's expanding or limiting?
He's expanding the
presumably
horizons.
Before the Blues Verdas gives them interpretation, people were davening all kinds of ways. He's saying, no, do it only
not
The
only.
Mishna says a type of posture.
Koved Rosh is not contradicting to either pasture.
No.
I mean, there is some pasture the Mishnah means. Yeah, you have to give it a meaning.
Seriously.
Seriously. Or Achna. Or
Be
Achna.
But it's not a steer,
Yeah.
seriousness, but when you read, Achna, Charaide, Berude, this is all not a contradiction to seriousness. He's limiting. The seriousness should be through Maras Nefesh.
No, I tell you one thing.
He's giving an experience.
It's counter. Let
One
me
of
say
many?
the following: within the scope, right? Within the minad, the
range.
range of possible postures.
Of
Clearly, this is in the
Extreme.
limit case, in the extreme case.
It's a very weird way of davening.
Right.
It's not a
Exactly.
it could be weird, you could call it weird,
It's
but
extreme. You said
it's
it's
basically a
Find
new
arguments.
way.
It's like be a lawyer for yourself. Like make arguments. Be a prosecutor.
So
be
it's a
a,
Come
very
with your
interesting
own
way. It's a
pain.
very creative,
yes, but
interesting
But is he
relationship.
saying that's another loud way, or is he saying this is the only way?
Only way. They never say only. They never say only.
No,
It's what he wants us to
from
do.
now on.
He wants us to do
on,
this.
he opens an option.
Yeah.
An option.
No, Moshe, he's asking, does he think that if someone's going to daven Yirah is not legitimate? No, he's just
Let me
opening
give
an
you an
option.
example.
He's opening an
Let me give
option,
you an example.
Uh-huh.
People,
Obviously, there was a need. Just, you can explain there was a need.
which is a
Maybe
problem.
people like
Let's
Kohen
talk
Galut.
about-
There was no
Let's
Shaykh Yirah. What's
Let's
Yirah?
talk
There was
about
more
a
Shaykh to
very
be have
raw-
Tainus on God.
Let's
Yeah.
talk about a very raw example.
Kasha
What
Favos is the
happens
first
to
Shemaz
I just want to understand what he's doing. He's giving
I'm just
options or
answering
taking
you.
away
I'm just
options.
answering.
Let me give you an
Okay.
example of a very raw situation. What happened on Simchas Torah?
We can,
You know
we can
what
have
people's
different ways
responses
of looking
are
at it.
Yeah, yeah.
to
We still don't know
tefillah.
for
If
sure.
you're complaining,
We can
or
be
if
expanding
you're
it.
not, there's a lot of different
I got it.
responses.
I got it. I understand.
It's not that hard.
The way we understand creator, there's no katan. What's a human being? Does.
Widening the range of the
The
question, the original question of the Gemara makes more sense because actually doing that because she was so
But he doesn't want to listen, but Iblis doesn't agree to that.
cares. He doesn't care.
you don't have the head to do that because she could do it. You can do it.
But we see Rabbi Lazar, and then he says Moshe, Eliyahu,
For all these things, there's no halacha psuka. It doesn't say in Shulchan Aruch how to daven. These are ways of davening, and I got it down.
but this Gemara, this set of Gemarot has shaped
Generations of davening.
generations of davening as a possible option, right? I
Well, we
remember
needed
my
it for the last
grandmother
2,000 years, right?
davening,
I think that he represents the Tefillah of Bavel. He comes from Bavel versus the Tefillah of Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael is the Hasidim. They are more Yirah, and he represents the Tefillah from Bavel. What he said.
Jonas, but Reb Luzig made it
One
also.
second, and he came up. So I'm saying he represents things of Tefillah of Bavel, Tefillah of Galut, and
I find this too big of concept. So Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak was a Bavli.
Bavli, yeah.
Yeah, he says Bira.
No, for sure, and Bavel was also the concept. This was the previous concept of Tefillah was Yirah, but the previous concept comes originally from the Mishnah Eretz Yisrael. That means it was still Shiraim in Bavel from the
So historically,
He
it's not-
represents
it's not
the
right.
Bavlish way.
The one who felt more in Galut were the people in Eretz Yisrael than the people in Bavel. Who had
It's a
more?
shiyot, what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
No, we don't add anything. I mean,
What?
it's not chas v'shalom shtuyot. It's an interesting thought, but
Yonis never.
the question is, what do you add when you say that's a tefillah of Babel? Then the next question is, so that's the way they daven in Babel. Rav Nachman Yitzchak said, in Eretz Yisrael they didn't have troubles. They have Shema, they have
Much
They have much worse.
Exactly. So
In Israel, they had much
Right,
more
but-
tsuris than in
yeah,
Bavel.
the causal.
No, what I'm saying is because this is a did, and it's true there were more Hasidim than in Bavel. That is established. That in Hasidut is more in Eretz Yisrael than in Bavel, in some type of way. But maybe we'll be more true if you say Ein Mispal Eretok Dvar Halacha belongs more to Bavel. What I'm saying.
Yeah, it's those things usually done well.
David Kramer, it was him a book.
Looks in English.
David Kramer authored a book, I think it's like Rabbinic Responses to the Problem of Evil. And he differentiates between different responses and approaches via God on like the Yerushalmi and the Palestinian rabbis refrained and they did not allow confrontational.
It's my experience, those things never work. You say in Eretz Israel, say in Bavel.
That's what he says. In Tosef, the Mishna says.
He's choiv.
I would say in second, third round, it all collapses.
No, I'm just saying what his
Okay,
thesis is.
that's why, because there was a connection.
And,
Nechita-
why? Because people in the same place.
Because the same people went up and down,
Because,
and
first
and
of
was a-
all, just our experience in the same place, under the same conditions, people have different.
Feelings.
He says that the Babylonians were more daring.
Some
in this.
people think that Eretz Israel is Geula. Some people think that Eretz Israel is a horrible
But you
thing.
can see
It
the
was.
difference between
in
I
the
mean,
same
in, that, in those times, it's Israel was much worse.
So much
for
you
sure.
can
So,
see the difference
this-
between
it's so gross.
Andalusia and
Bavel, Eretz Israel.
Welche Sachen?
But-
Dit hat nicht so gefehlt.
You know,
It was the Alexandrians, the
I read, for
Everyone
example,
knows American
that
operator.
I read, for example, that asceticism, real sakfanut, is a Bavli thing, right? They always say it, right?
That's what they.
But
it's
it
about
says,
Yeah,
I don't know, it says in.
זה ההפך, לא זה בדף הזה against, כל ההיות שבטענס נקרא חויטה.
No, but the Tana wasn't Tana that fasted for 40
So
years.
all those things are so, I mean, they're so crude. It's like doing brain surgery with orthopedic tools. You know, it's those things are far
So Rabbi
more.
Shmuel Rebbe Kiva, no?
It's
But it's not different than saying two Beit Midrashim and Rabbi Shmuel Rebbe Akiva? B'Shem HaBasel?
No, there. By the way, there. We know we can
He's talking
develop.
about Heschel.
We can develop. Well,
Louis Finkelstein has beautiful.
we learn a lot from him, but he piled on it
Everything,
more and
yeah.
more and more and more and more
Right.
and more.
The
At the
Hokus
end,
Mendes, the
the
JTS,
thing
Louis
collapses.
Finkelstein, and all of them.
Collapses from the weight of all the thing you had. I mean, there is a clear difference
Darf ich schon
between.
in Wasser sagen noch? Ich kann auch strammels genug, ne?
So you can have what we have here. You can say, I mean, what we have here is. Do we have atachat dvarim in? So I have a student who wrote a PhD. She actually is very good on the question of atachat dvarim in Sifrut Chazal, and he shows, you know,
What's his name?
her name is.
It's in the book already?
It's not a book. It wasn't published.
Is it
Chana Aishas Okona.
Soon I'm sorry. I
Okay.
escaped my. So. Baror was her family name. Soon I'm going to recall the first name. In any event, it doesn't match the Eretz Israel, Babel. I mean, these are usually they don't work, I think. Usually.
He divides it into Tosef, the Mishnah, like throughout the ages, not as much
And
geographic
then
location.
in Dor Hashmad, and then this, and then.
Because he puts it in the era in which it was compiled, and that influenced the
Okay,
approaches.
okay. I mean, sometimes.
And Moshe looks to Shalashidis, though, no?
Yeah, he's a scholar. He's a scholar.
Okay, so he says
I
that.
mean, we learn from all. Yeah, we have to learn the book. We have to look it seriously.
Yeah, see what it says.
But
It's
in
another
our
option.
context,
It's another
it's enough for me to say, look, here comes a person, Elazar ben Dat, who is Mara Deshmata, right? He moves the sugya,
Mura de Ara de Yisroel.
and ma,
Mura de Ara de Yisroel.
Right.
It says, Ana Buzan
and he had a very complicated relationship with Rabbi Yochanan that we know, and he opens up a whole religious option through responding to Koved Rosh in his own way, in a sugya that the work of sugya as a whole is expansion of options, Dvar Halacha, Mitoch Simcha. So you have forms of standing that creates a whole spectrum of forms, right? Where the most radical, clearly, the most radical, the exceptional, is Rabbi Elazar ben Dat. Let's just finish here with with what he's doing with Moshe Rabbeinu, because that's the, and I would say the most radical, daring, one of the most radical and daring moments in the whole Jewish creative life appears in this page. So let's do it. Go for it. It's a good way for me also to take you away from the machine.
מדבר שם משה ליימר, לייכרייד, מי לייכרייד, לבלוזה, לקדוש משה רייד מגדלו זכו, כלום נסעת לגדלו אלה בשביל ישראל, ועכשיו ישראל חרתי.
That's a beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah.
So from which Gedilla should you go down to? From the Gedilla from next to God?
Yeah.
From being a man?
What Rashi says, that why the call mem shuner, that Yidden mem shuner, Midbar was not as Galatin, because it's only schist to have being the manig is because Klaus.
That's a beautiful thing. That's every leader has to understand that. Leaders usually don't understand that. Yeah.
But the cynic,
it's a weakness of leaders.
The sinner Jews also need a leader.
Exactly. So
this message you could tell to the Jews: you don't deserve Moshe, not the Moshe. You don't deserve the Jews. I mean, the sinners also need a Moshe.
We read Lech red מהארץ, red מגדולתך.
מיד תוש כוח של משה ולא לכוח לדבר, כי מש אומר Hedef ממני והשמידן, וממשה דובר זה to the be, because he saw that absolute stop begging.
Right.
So obviously
that's
has
beautiful.
a koyach.
That's a beautiful reading.
מיד עומד ונסחזק בתפילה, הביקש שרח, ממשה למד את שקוסה בנוי ומקיים מכה גדולו ואהבו יושו לפוניו, ומסיור אלוהים הדובר, אומר המלך אלה מול האהב זה יושו לפוניו אלקטיחו. אומר, בזוי דובר זה to the be, מיד עומד והצילה.
That's a beautiful reader.
ועתו הניחי לי ויחי אפי בהם בחולים ועשר בקר להם ועשר זגוי גודל אומר בבי אילה מול מקרו כוסף אי אפשר אמרו because it's like הניחי לי מלמד שתופס מוישה הקדוש ברוך הוא כאודם שתויפס את חוויירו בביגדוי ואומר לפונה ולבוינו שלוילם אינה מניחו עד שתמכו ותסתך להם. By the way, Professor Halbertal has a whole article on אילה מול המקרו. Yeah? What does it mean? If you could want to say it b'kitz and nimrus, what does it mean, or it's a whole sugya b'fnei atzma?
It's a sugya b'fnei. Okay, yeah. I wrote an essay on the formula ilmale mikra katuv efshar lomro, and the thrust of it is that it being said at moments where, how would I say it? The thrust of it is that it's being said in moments in which, okay, I will say, al shne raglayim. Usually, anthropomorphic or relational modes of thinking about God draw from hierarchical human relationships.
What?
Hierarchical. God is a king, a father, a husband in a patriarchal structures, a judge. So you have hierarchies, etc., etc. You say ilmale mikra katuv efshar lomro, where the hierarchy either is reversed, where God is in actually the lower side, or it's horizontally parallel. And that's and I show how bold it is, right? So you say. וזאת הברכה שברך משה איש האלוקים, אלמלא מקרא כתוב אי אפשר לאומרו, איש האלוקים כאדם שגוזר על אשתו ועושה. Right? איש האלוקים means
that he is the ish, the aibish of the isha.
Right. And I also point out that usually in אלמלא מקרא שכתוב אי אפשר לאומרו, הכתוב לא אומר. It's circular. First you say you read it in the text, and then you say, if the text wouldn't have said it, I would never say it, right? So, I would never say
that's
that
the
God,
real meaning.
that God can be the Isha, Isha Elohim, right? Isha Elohim. Who would read Isha Elohim to say?
So what does it mean? Is it a joke? What kind of way?
It's
is
circular.
it?
Godly man.
What kind of?
It's circular. It says. I want to say something very daring, right? Extremely daring. Say, I got interested in this formula because I said, if you want to understand what are the rabbis thinking that is really at the extreme. אלמלא מקרא כתוב אי אפשר לומרו. I mean, even before reading, I knew that the Mikra doesn't say that.
Right.
I knew that it is circular. Say, well, but religiously, I say what's the. It says, for example, Chonen Hashem.
If I can't squeeze it
It
into
says
Pusik, I wouldn't want
Chonen
to say.
Dal
That's
Malveh
what
Hashem.
Nein,
If I
Right.
can't squeeze it into Pusik,
It says, אלמלא מקרא כתוב אי אפשר
כי אם
לומרו.
זה היה פוסיק,
Right?
אם הייתם, wenn ich פוסיק wollte ich kennen sagen, באמס, איזה
עבד לווה לאיש מלווה. Right? It's a Gemara in Baba Basra.
עבד לא יבד לאשמל, yeah?
Now God becomes your slave.
Oh God.
Because
But
he's
Cohen
a
and
Malveh.
Ma-
Like the Cohen and the
If I chonen dal, I actually pay God's chov.
He's my slave.
Now he owes me.
Who
He
says
owes-
it's חשבון?
זה גמרא,
גמרא,
רבי
אוקיי.
יוחנן. רבי יוחנן and Rabbi Abahu are the sources.
אלה מולס.
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
That's in. Look, Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Abahu, Rabbi Shua ben Levi, Rabbi Lazar ben Dat, all the Darshanei Agada of Eretz Israel,
First generation.
they were the masters, the great religious thinkers of.
אלה מולס.
Yeah, they were poof. They were free,
They pushed
creative.
the
Yeah, they pushed the envelope, right? Here you see Rabbi Abahu's, Rabbi Lazar's beautiful readings, right?
Right.
You know, he reads "V'ata aniach li." You know, they were arumim bi'irah, right?
You bet.
They were very pikchim.
יש את האמירה של הרב שצורף, צריך להיות חכם, להיות תמים, תהיה מהשם אלוקיך.
Right, right. It's beautiful. So I was interested in modes of the ultimate intimacy. אהבה מקלקלת את השורה, right? Love reverses the order of things, right?
Okay.
So, but you'll read the. I actually didn't want to mention it, but
You wanted to say something
Your
else
Bible.
before also.
There was
on this Gemara.
brackets.
On this Gemara, you wanted to say something before, no? Before the
soon we'll go.
Ilimolai Kusavam.
Yeah, here is actually horizontal relation. כאדם שתופס את חברו בבגדו.
Yeah.
It's no more hierarchical, right? Look, I would say the following. In anthropomorphic thinking,
That this is the way that Chazal used to think.
No.
anthropomorphic draws from hierarchical relationships,
Right.
right? Chazal offer added some hierarchical relationship that Torah doesn't know. For example, Rav v'Talmid,
Condition.
right? Rav v'Talmid.
Sige שהרב מוחש גוידה.
Or בעל הבית ופועלים, right? They have few new metaphors of hierarchy, but and also what they do is they understand that it's all concentrated in one person, right? Meaning that the same person,
There is a melech, is
since-
also a rab, also
a father, a
Father.
shofet who's also a father, right?
No, but sure that the people that focused more on Av and the people who focused more on Melech.
No,
no?
but they know that the subtlety, im kebanim, im keavadim.
It's another pool.
But the more radical thing is when you have access to metaphors that are non-hierarchical, or that the hierarchy is reversed, where God is the wife, where God is the eved, where God is the one being judged. And that's where ilmale mikra katuv is used. Right? As we see here, כאדם שתופס את חברו. So do we have, for example, in all Tanakh, a non-hierarchical metaphor? It's interesting. But in any event.
Yeah, we do?
No, we don't. I didn't find, but we might have. Okay. But let's get to the... Yeah. go ahead.
ואז אוסך לגוי גודל, אומר הבלוז אומר מוישה לפני כתשבור חרבון שלנו. מה הכיסא ששור שגולם עין יוכל למד לפניכו, because בנאי אברהם יצר יעקב, בשעס קסחוס, כיסא שרגע אחד, is gonna make Moshe some descendants immer, הלך אז כמה וכמה, ולא יודע שיש בי בושס פונה מהבויסאי, אך שהיום ראי פעם שהם דלן ביקש גדיל לעצמם ולביקש להם רחמן. ויכל משה פני השם, אומר בלוזה, מלמד שאומן משה בציר לפני הקדוש ברוך הוא, עד שחלאי.
He made him sick.
Made him
right?
sick, yeah.
Now comes a very powerful.
ורובו אומר, עד שהופן הנדרה. כסיבוך ויחל, כסיבוך סנה יחל דבורה. הוא אמר, היא אין המייכל, ואחרי המייכל לא יודע, זה מקור, פפולוס נדור מהחוכה.
אלמלא באנו לשורה זו, it will be...
Why?
Right? It says that tefillah is a form of הפרת נדרים.
Okay.
Right?
Why?
So what is tefillah? That's the boldest
The question.
Rava, I don't believe that Rava said such a thing, but let's... What is a...
There is a Gersa that says Rav.
Right.
The Gilyon says Rav.
Okay. Whatever.
Okay.
It says that what is tefillah, right? Tefillah is הפרת נדרים.
changing.
God has a plan. God has a plan,
Yeah.
right? And now God is kind of locked in his plan.
Okay.
And the function of tefillah is to reason with him that actually
Tzadik Goizer Kadosh Baruch Hu.
it's not goizer here, it's saying
Tzadik Meifer.
you couldn't mean it under these conditions, right? The way you this is very bold, right? In the spectrum of possible religious,
Especially if a fullest neder for Chocha means he's mavar that he made a mistake. It's like
Yeah.
telling him that
Yeah.
you made a mistake.
You didn't mean these
Your plan was mistakenly
Yeah.
planned.
No, that these
Yeah.
circumstances have a different response, no?
yeah, I mean they're in a
למול הכסיב,
Kan de laben hem afvrije. Depends how you learn it from
Yeah.
Shimon.
למול לא כתוב בגמרא,
As if
אנחנו לא
God
אומרים
didn't know these
שזה הפרה.
circumstances.
But in any
huh?
event, we did
It's
a lot
very
of
funny.
work today, right?
Yeah.
And,
Oh wow, the
and-
time flew.
And the work we did is, you see also Rabbi Lazar is there are two paradigms here, the Tfilah of Hana and Tfilah of Moshe. And it's being used to formulate a whole variety of religious postures because Moshe Rabbeinu is not a form of bitterness or confrontation. It's a form of convincing of
Desperation.
So this gets expanded from bitterness.
or
Thing.
yeah.
The other meaning,
It's other meaning.
it's also Rabbi Lazar.
Yeah.
Introduce another
He's
meaning.
exploring. He's exploring.
How would you call this?
I would say it's a mode of
Advocacy.
advocacy, kind of yeah.
It's advocacy, twisting the arm, you know.
Kitze, Rabbi Yitzchak Baditsheve.
I'm an advocate.
Professor,
All kind
break
of-
it
you can advocate by
something
twisting
last
somebody's
week,
arm.
this, the individual versus the
That's the
public
only-
tefillah,
And
what
my
what's
machshir is
different.
you focus on the
Rabbi
weaker
Akiva,
one, and the guys
his
on
house.
this. Ja, is toch gek.
Any-
Hoe dacht ik nou eens?
About Rabbi Akiva, you
How are we going to really work as far as
This
last
is
week and
this.
this week as far as
Ah,
the tefillah
that's
is?
interesting,
If there's
yeah.
if there are individual tefillahs that you do, there's
Yeah.
public tefillahs.
And here Rabbi Akiva, what's the relation between Tfilat
Several
Tzachor
lights in the Karayim.
and by the way, there is this only issue here that comes in, where does it
That's
begin
the case
insert
of
its own
Rosh
tefillah, in שומע התפילה, אחרי התפילה. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, I think we did enough work today, right?